Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for watching today as you are hopefully celebrating because it is TGIF. That is Friday time. A little bit unusual timing on the Roundup here, but that's partly because of that Monday Night Football game here. So we're coming at you with the weekly show we do bring here, which is usually just in the hopes of kind of catching what little stories might have gone between the cracks, or if there's any kind of news percolating in the background to Hawk fandom and maybe what they're thinking about a little bit. And quite honestly, as we're getting into this bye week, it's mainly going to be pretty straightforward today. There's not a lot in the background that there's, kind of discussing. There's no sort of, is there some contract negotiation about to happen? Is there some trade on deck? Is there some internal strife? No. Business is good. Things are moving smooth sailing right now. Things feel like they're really coming together. You've got on an injury front to one side of the ball due, according to Mike McDonald, to get everybody back, it would seem, from this starting crew after the bye week. Offensively speaking, there's even a chance we're going to be getting Robbie Oots, who's really our only major injury that we've had over there. Kind of an underrated storyline of the season so far has been the great health of the Seattle Seahawks and the fact that they've been able to, avoid, as we've seen, like with what the Niners are going through, those horrible issues that can just throw you completely off the tracks. So one of the parts to kind of keep in mind, but everything is really rolling along good. So we're going to kind of just make this go at a normal pace that we do on these kind of days and just kind of go through our segments, take a look at some of the PFF scores, a couple of the plays from this last week. And I want to start off before we get into a couple of plays of that it was really significant in this game where you're looking at Mike McDonald to do kind of adjustments and move to one thing or the other. And he's been staying really in that low area of the blitz rate. But going back and watching the tape again, I was struck by how much more often the team was willing to blitz. And this was definitely represented in some of the next-gen stats that you could look at coming off the back of this game, where you're operating 31st coming into the league in blitz rate, about 16% or so. Then you get into this game and you double that amount. They were up around 30%. I think they were top 10 for the week in their blitz rate. And I just love that Mike is willing to sort of unveil this at certain times. It's not that you run it 24/7. It's just that you have that card, that ace in the hole, if you will, to be able to bring out, to throw those teams when they're getting used to just running that front four kind of looks and they're just getting used to the zone coverages and a lot of guys drop back to depth. Now you're making them think. Now you're making those simulated pressures when you're actually up at the box be that much more effective because you're just bringing simulated pressures that always drop into the same front four basically, and for the most part, and I think we're doing a little bit of that early on in the year, you're going to kind of be landing in the same zone where the quarterbacks are going to start to anticipate that. They're going to start to understand where those guys are probably going to be dropping into space. You see this at times in some of the earlier tape this year where we'd have double A gap pressure, and then both linebackers drop out, and then the receiver sits between the two linebackers in their space. And that's a little bit of the offense kind of knowing how you're going to drop out of that. So bringing the blitzes and allowing that to be just in something that here and there you can kind of show, hey, no, we're willing to do this, and we actually do it pretty well. One of the real standout parts of this game, and going back and watching the tape, and again, the fact that all of those blitzes, as I said in the post-game breakdown, so many varied style of blitzes, so many different kinds, the delayed, the corner blitz, the what I would call the Blitzburg kind of blitzes, which is the old school zone blitzes, overload one side, drop out the other. The drop out the other is there to take away the hot. So it's where there's not a hot to the side of where the guys are blitzing from. So instead, the quarterback's got to go to his hot read to the other side of the field. And then you've got the space dropper and out there just sort of standing right where he wants to throw the ball. And he can either take the sack or try to fit it into a tight space. We saw Stroud try to fit it into a tight space, and that didn't work too well. Let's cook this right along, though, with our first segment of the week. And if you're around here, we just go through these different segments just, again, to kind of get a last little look at this game and some things that I think are worth interesting and mentioning, especially as it might carry forward. And we're going to start off with the PFF grades of the week. So we got first the offense up here, and I don't think that there'll be any surprises, but there are some cool things to take away from here. Just as a reminder, the grades are not an end-all be-all. These are things that we're doing when we look at these grades to marry with what we've seen on the tape. They're not just be there it's all. It's also, sometimes they get it wrong. And we see that often with them, especially with a guy like Ernest Jones, who seems to have pissed somebody off over a PFF. I don't quite get it, but it's just a tool. It's part of the assembly of data that we take into account in trying to figure out what's going on with this team. So PFF scores here for the week. Offensively speaking, Jackson Smith-Njigba leading the way there with a 90.1 grade. Heavily on the back, of course, what he's doing as a receiver and blocking okay. Abraham Lucas. This is something that if you've been tracking these PFF grades with me throughout the year on these Roundup shows, you'll know that Abraham kind of started out in a little bit of the low area of things. We're not bad per se, but kind of low, kind of like, okay, is the leg back here fully? And what you're seeing here is the course of the year and him getting more of just integrated back into this offense is these grades have gotten better and better and better. And if I'm not mistaken, this 82.6 grade that he's got, 71 on a pass blocking grade, 87.5 on the run blocking grade, comes as the highest grade of the season for him. And 71 pass blocking grade, there's not all good pass blocking grades are built the same way. And his 71's coming on the back of facing some of the Will Anderson, some of a Danielle Hunter. Very impressive of him pulling that off. I think in Charles Cross, you see a solid game as well. Again, understanding that the degree of difficulty, much more ramped up here against the Texans for those two particular guys operating in the offense, and they stood tall and they performed very well. Good to see as well. I think this is also Jalen Sundell's best rated game at 79. So all of these really great developments. You want to see our offensive linemen at the top of the PFF boards, don't you? That makes you feel good where you're like, yeah, we're probably in pretty good shape if that's going down. Eric Saubert was released this week. It's my understanding that they're going to kind of get him back into the flow. So we'll see what's going on with him there. Kind of a weird situation and how they're playing around with some roster rolling, I guess, here just a tiny bit. Gray's Able, 60.1. Okay. 64 is about an average kind of grade. So all these other guys below are just a little bit on the lower end. You can see with Arroyo, he didn't like his game as much as a pass catcher with a 55.5 grade, but he was okay down the line on everything that he supplied. Sam Darnold with the 61.4. They're going to get him for the interception, and I don't know if he was down that low, but I get it. And then when we look to the bottom here, A.J. Barner, a little bit of a struggle. Torrey Horton, a little bit of a struggle. Walker, a couple of times maybe not going quite to the right hole that he should have with the vision stuff there, maybe just a little bit, not overstating it, but just a little bit. Don't know how they knocked Cooper Kupp's game. I think he did all right in this one, but Bradford stands out as the one that we're going to pop back up with the Come On Man moment segment of the week. He'll be returning there on that one, and 15.2 pass blocking grade. I don't know how bad Christian Haynes must be if he's back on the field and healthy after the bye, which we're hearing he's due to return. How bad he must be if he can't upend this with the 15.2 grade. And with Bradford, we thought that this new offense, the techniques within it, the details within it, would maybe really capitalize on the natural gifts he has as a player. Fortunately, it's not been much of the case. There were good signs of it early on, like this, we can get there. And then it's starting to regress. It's going a little bit backwards. It's heading in the wrong direction. You'd expect the improvement to be like this, not starting here and going down like that, which is a little more of what you're getting, and the grades do represent this. As you're going to see this on tape again, and you guys have seen, I'm sure, all the clips online, and I really want Bradford to do good. I'm not rooting against him here, but we're a couple years in here. We need a stepping up to the plate, I think, a little bit here, and Seattle's got to be looking at the deadline to see if they can't find something of a moderate amount of improvement here. Hopefully so. All right, we got at the top here, and I love this. This is where what people on the PFF grades to me, and then where I actually find a use, where I can go, yeah, but this is the side of it where they're capturing something that the average fan would not. And if you took a look at the box scores, in fact, let me just bring it up, because I got the box score. Let me bring up the box score here. If you just look at simply the box score from this game, boom, 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 boom. Where's my defense? There's my defense, which is right here. Got Ernest Jones leading the way in tackles, Tayakata, Byron Murphy, blah, blah, blah. We go down to the bottom, and it looks like Boye Mafe had a bad day. No tackles, just one mere pass defense that was on that zone drop I was talking about on the zone blitz. So it was a kind of his 1 point of production was essentially manufactured by Mike McDonald. No quarterback hits, no sacks, no TFLs. So on the surface of it, the average fan looks at that stat sheet and they go, well, Boye didn't have a good day, I guess. Kind of a quiet day for Boye. But nah. Okay? Because when we look at this, 83.4 overall grade on the day, and that represented what I saw to my eyes, which is that I thought he played a really good game. He was active in the run. They don't want to get him, they don't like how he tackled, but I thought he was active in the run, a force there off the edge in that way. He rushed the passer really well, had a strip sack that was called back due to a penalty that was outside of his control and didn't, wasn't what allowed him to get the sack. But this is where I like how these grades are established, because I would have looked at it coming out of that game and I could have seen how you'd get to an 83.4 grade for Boye and how he played. He was creating the consistent pressure. May have not been actually getting sometimes that quarterback hit, but he was flushing CJ up in the pocket, not allowing him to get to his first read. He had a really good game, his best game of the year, in fact. Good to see Kobe Bryant with 75.9, solid in there. Brandon Peely only had 7 snaps, but did the most with them, and that's good for us, right? The more maybe we can give Byron a little bit of relief out of that one tech role, the better here. And so getting Brandon a couple more snaps is helpful, especially when you look at Byron Murphy shouldering 47 snaps in this game, which is a fairly heavy workload, not over too much, but when you're one teching it in there and you're taking on double teams a lot, it's kind of double the pounding a little bit. Tariq Woolen, 69.5. To me, he could have had an even better graded game. I don't know where they're kind of other than, of course, they're getting him with the tackling. So that is what it is. Emawari, 67.2, good in there. All the rest of these guys kind of right up in that average-ish range. On the bottom side, they didn't like Nwosu's game quite as much. And for some reason, they didn't like Ernest Jones's game, which I don't understand. Something that he is doing right now that stands out to me when you look at these interceptions on tape, and that is a place that you got to give Ernest extra credit for, because we were all told with Ernest, he's a tackling machine, but coverage, the coverage. No, you can't trust him out there in that coverage, man. I mean, that's where he's just a little bit weak out there. What are you going to do? This is what we were told over and over again about, him as a player. And instead, we've seen him make plays in coverage. A couple interceptions last year. I almost had another one on top of it, I believe, or at least had one, could add a couple others. He got 3 for the year right now. And what's standing out on tape when you watch him is he's really tricking quarterbacks, rolling to a first zone coverage pop, boom, boom. He's over here covering this guy. Quarterback's over here to the other side of the field, read middle of the field, but to the other side of the field. And then the quarterback's going, well, the mic is out of the play here. He's picked up this guy. Surely he's not going to flip his hips, transition back the other way, and be in the middle of the field for that play. That'll be wide open, right? Surely he's not going to do that. And Ernest does it. Just shows some of the athleticism he has to be able to kind of spin on a dot like that. Also, why in coverage, it's not just always about speed, but quickness, athleticism are also heavy factors. But I don't get where PFF's coming from on this particular grade. Is what it is. We'll just shrug it and go and keep it moving on. All right, so let's go over to the defense here. Oh, wait, I did do the defense there. All right, yeah. So we got through those special teams. I don't know. I can't take too much away from these. Brady Russell, Chaz Surratt, Mike Morris, Anthony Bell, Connor O'Toole. I think the good part here is that the guys that are on this roster, as much for what they do as special teamers, are providing that here based on these scores, versus being like some of your maybe de facto starters up there, or guys that you're relying on in the regular part of the game. So good to see these kind of names up at the top on the special teams side, but I never know how much to really take away from the special teams grades, because that seems definitely one it's very, very out of the box. Please, if you can, for me today, folks, hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. And let's move on to the guy that I was talking about just a second ago here, which is going to be our guy, Anthony Bradford. And again, Anthony, I have hope for him, but boy, if John's looking at, trade target guys out there that to me would make a lot of sense, and that, hey, where can we improve? Where can we just bring something in to moderately take this from this up to here? Up to here. That'd be great. I'm on board finding that too. But is there a position that we can go where there's not a lot of assets we got to give, where we can just kind of take this up to here? It's kind of like the Mariners trade deadline. It's like, can you find an Eugenio Suarez who will be an upgrade, who's not going to cost you a lot there in the real farm system draft capital, or a Josh Naylor and his bat and what he provided, and also with his glove, and how you could kind of find those market kind of moves. And this would seem like a spot to me. Like if I'm looking at the Titans with a Kevin Zeitler, guy's been around the block, really probably could, get into a system very quickly and figure out what's going on very fast, who's got a very solid grade this year, who's been still a solid player despite his age for the last few years, just gets the job done. That's a guy to me where it's like, well, that seems to me where you could tremendously upgrade this position with a guy like that, just on, him being even moderately above league average. But that's where we find ourselves, and this is one play that represents this. It's the touchdown throw to Jackson Smith-Njigba. There was a lot of boneheaded plays in this game that I could point to. I'm like, guys, what are you doing there? Oh, don't do this. And so this is the one I do. Of course, Come On Man segment is ripped off here. I'm explicitly stealing it from the ESPN folks as far as that old segment. I always liked it. And again, it kind of puts a highlight on some things at times. In this case, you've got a front four from the Texans. Bradford's going to have to one-on-one essentially this 3-tech in his alignment. Now, he's really kind of, I would say more times, I think the tongue guys can be 1-tech-ish at times, but that's neither here nor there. It's a 5-step drop by Sam Darnold. So it's not 3-step, which is the quickest of releases, but this is about as easy a drop back as you get for an offensive lineman, especially when you're taking on a bull rush. You're always with a bull rush going to give up ground. There's no guy that goes, there's some guys that can do it, but technically be like a lineman blocking a linebacker or a lineman blocking a safety or something. But if it's a pure, fat on fat, chubby on chubby, well, you're gonna give up ground. That guy's got momentum in you. It's gonna naturally happen. The thing with it is that do you cede little bits of ground or do you just cede a lot of ground going backwards? And what you see on this play where you're able to get the touchdown in because Sam Darnold's got a couple things going for him: quick decision making, rocket cannon arm, and then he's also got a lot of toughness because Sam's been hitting the chops a bunch this year. And I want you to notice on this play as Sam is delivering the ball, how he does get hit and cracked, onto his back here as he's making the throw on this 5-step drop. But Bradford just loses all the ground in the world. Let's just go through this. Just go through this pass pro. First, the setup gets super wide for no reason. Like, why are you this wide? Lucas is on your right. Lucas isn't blocking anybody. You've got help. Not aware that he's got help. That's what this first part of the set tells me. I don't know that Lucas is there to help me. I'm not aware of that. Okay. Then you get your hands on him. The guy senses he's got a hold of the inside. He throttles you up into the air with his initial hands. So you lose the leverage war. Error number 2. You don't got any sort of reset. You get put right on skates here. And you almost give the guy the free path. Look how his shoulders get turned sideways here. How does he turn your shoulders sideways like that? I watched this rep about 15 times. I still don't know how your shoulder, I can get it how his shoulders turn the other way. His shoulders turn this way. And now he's look at the position he's in. The whole play is just a mess. You got to give your quarterback a little more time on a 5-step drop than this. Bradford, we got to see you improve here, buddy. Where's the fire? Where's the flame? My man. Come on. A lot of hopes for Bradford coming out. 97th percentile athlete. And I will give him credit. He's been able to stay healthy this year, and it's not all been completely bad. Just this is about the time when you get into a guy that's been this many years in your program that was supposed to be the young raw player, that this is about the time that you're kind of expecting things to, the fire to take a little bit. And I'm not sure if it's quite taking, and that's kind of play to me where multiple things going on that weren't particularly good at once. Let's go to the good side of this, though. And let's talk about a guy that is being talked about, I think, a pretty good amount in this game, but probably, in my opinion, not, necessarily being talked quite enough about, as we're still, I think, hearing from a lot of fans about a poll to want to try to improve this linebacker position. And there might be a will linebacker position that you can improve. That's another one of those ones where there tends to be guys available on the market. So you might be able to find somebody there. But certainly this past week, Drake Thomas played a hell of a game in a variety of different components and what he was bringing. It wasn't just in kind of a one-trick way. And so I wanted to highlight him this week as my underrated hero of the week. And where it starts with Drake Thomas in this game is coverage. 3 PBUs in this game, 3 pass breakups. And that for a cornerback is something that you might see occasionally here and there in a game, but it's not something that you're going to see from an off-ball linebacker. These are the guys that tend to be deficient when it comes to their coverage. So when they're doing stuff like this, you can probably estimate that unless it's something freakish, they've made it happen in that they've got an upper level coverage ability. What did we hear about Drake Thomas when he came over here from the Raiders? And many of our own fans, by the way, to give our fans credit on this one, were on the ball with this, where they said, ooh, we just got to steal it from the Raiders. They shouldn't have let this guy go. Yeah, he's a little undersized, but I mean, he is a coverage demon. The guy can run with anybody. And so we come to this game and we look at what Drake Thomas first and foremost in this game. And what did he do as a guy in coverage? Well, as I said, you had a lot of this game where you were blitzing and where that was at the forefront of what you were doing. And so pressure, you got to be tight on the hot routes. If you're going to be blitzed, a lot of times the hot route is going to be the security blanket is going to be the running back coming out of the backfield. And here the running back first is supposed to try to set this up as being he's in pass pro and then he's going to leak out. Drake's on it all the way. And you can see that little bit of quickness that he's got there. Feel the quickness here as boom, he's right on top of it. Making a play on the ball, ripping it free, and it is an incompletion here. Can only show so many of these plays per second. The NFL only allows little bits of it, so you can only show a little bit. But just a tremendous play of him in space here. That looks open to CJ here, right? That looks like that's a good yard, especially in short spaces. That's a lot of separation. But he closes the gap really quickly, goes and makes a play. Also, this was one of my favorite ones here from him. He had another play in this game, but this is one that was just tremendous. You flush CJ from the pocket. I mean, he plays this like a cornerback. So again, losing a little space initially, he's got to make up some coverage ground. You can see that there. Doesn't get too grabby. Cover a lot of linebackers here. He starts to think, oh, is he going to get grabby? No, gets the handoff, keeps this clean. He goes, wait, I can run with this guy. Runs with him. And the cool part about this play, runs with him. What you tell the guys to do essentially is if they've lost a little bit of that leverage, that you're trying to catch back up, but then you want to try to sink your body sort of into them, then get the head back around for the ball and then make the play. So that if there is any contact as you're kind of sinking into them to do that, the refs aren't going to call it because you're making a call on the play. So watch if he doesn't do this very same thing to him, to the man here as he's going up the field, as you see him get back into the body and then turn back around. It's really bang, bang, but he's first angling himself to the man and then turn around and make the play on the ball. Really nice play here from Drake Thomas. I mean, this is like playing this like a cornerback would. How many times have we seen linebackers in space like this never get their head around the ball? Or they'll get into the guy, right? Like that. They'll do that move where they're, okay, I'm into him and I'm kind of got him there now. But they never get the head turned around. So the guy can still maybe make a play on the ball, or worse yet, you get the PI. That's where a lot of linebackers in that situation would just run through the man because they're not used to how to kind of get up to him, pull up, turn around and look. So it may look like a pretty whatever kind of play there, but he's doing a lot of really nice things technically there that you don't see from linebackers typically in coverage. And one of the parts that he does bring to play here, and one of the reasons why when you look at the Seahawks throughout this year is Drake has been pretty much your starter and your full-time will now at this point, is that you're not allowed a lot of yards in coverage absent maybe that Tampa Bay Buccaneer game where it got a little bit out of line. He also had a TFL in this game as well. So showing you can do a couple of different things. We've seen him already get a couple of sacks this year, and this is where the quickness can come in and really help you because he's also a really good blitzer, and he can just get to the spot so fast. But shout out to Leonard Williams as well. When we tell you about Leonard Williams being a game wrecker, you can't, and another thing was I can't go always just to the stats. He blows this play right back up. But Drake Thomas on that backside, so quick. My feeling on this is that this is part of the problem with Leonard too, is that I think what they're trying to do is get a right guard center situation here. Boom, boom. They're trying to get that on him because they think Drake's not going to get over here when they run this to the outside zone there. So, Leonard defeats this block. I don't know if this is a smart play by him where he just realizes they're going to try to double him. So he gets to the left shoulder of 69. And then he doesn't give the pathway then to the right tackle to get there. But this is the impact of having a guy that's a force like this guy up front as he starts to get doubled in this way. And again, he's running, as far as this double, that's a tackle guard. That's not the center guard combo you'd see in those doubles typically. So this is a little unusual of a double team. But Drake Thomas shoots the gap, goes and makes the play in space. He's been a pretty sure tackler as well. Very, very good play on his part. But it seems like he's getting comfortable. And we've got to remember with Drake Thomas here that this is his kind of first real chance to be this full, here you go. You got a chance. Here's your full opportunity. And you've been in the league, as I talked about with Bradford. You're in a league like this for a couple of years now. You've been in that weight room program for 3 seasons. You've been through the offseason program. You've had a chance to really work on your body and get yourself to the apex physically of maybe wherever you'll be in your just about life. Maybe that's your physical basically prime at that point, especially in football. And he's gotten there, and he does look comfortable. I don't know if we're not going to see eventually some of the size limitation stuff hold him up down the line, and especially when we get to maybe teams that run the ball really well. But he's working his way through it here so far. And I start to wonder now, where I started out the season thinking you're starting Drake Thomas because he's the best option, and you've got Tyrese Knight with a little bit of an injury, or Tyrese Knight isn't quite the same player he was last year. And instead, it kind of looks like, no, Drake took this job, as Mike McDonald has been saying. And then, it's what he's shown on the field that's earned his right to be here. And after a game like this, I can certainly understand why. All right, let's go to, it's not really a hit this week. There wasn't really necessarily a big hit per se, but I wanted to highlight one other play here.
The biggest hit of the week.
Let's take a peek here at one of the plays I wanted to note. And this isn't really a big hit, admittedly speaking. And I didn't find the big hit, but I did want to, I thought, if I can't find a big hit on this, let's fill it in with something else that's at least kind of somewhere in the realm of having kind of the impact of what a big hit would. And I'm not trying to highlight a guy getting concussed. I hope Nico Collins bounces really back well, and that this, you see a guy getting his head bounced off the turf. It's a very scary moment. And hopefully he'll be all right, especially for this next week's Niner game where we need Nico to play. But with that said, you do have Josh Jobe in coverage. The Texans are not wanting to throw at Woolen in this game. So what they do is they're really at this point relying upon trying to isolate Jobe throughout and get after him. And you can see on this that this is just one of a few plays where they've been doing this. This is the final one where they did it, where they just quick throws out to him in space. They would get him with out routes. They would try to attack him in his off coverage. And this is the same way. And on this play, Jobe, much like we saw with Drake Thomas, competitive through the catch point. Even if you give up a little separation early here, when you get into the ball, I call it be a moment of truth mangler. Moment of truth mangler. Where, okay, you beat me. You still got to pull this ball in. You still got to reel the thing in and make the completion. And if I am mangling you through your arms, and once that ball hits your arms, you're fair territory. As long as I can time it right, I'm in fair territory to start ripping and roaring into you. And that's what we get here with Jobe. Starts out tearing, ripping, pulling, gets the ball ripped free, and then completes the process. Doesn't kind of hope he gets the ball ripped free. He makes sure he gets the ball ripped free, completing through the process, slinging big Nico Collins to the ground, man with almost Julio Jones-like size. And that's a much smaller corner doing that, and ricochets his head off the turf. Again, not celebrating the injury. I'm celebrating the effort, the tenacity, the intensity, the competitiveness of Josh Jobe, which we have seen on a weekly basis. Not the most talented player in the sport. Not going to ever ascend to being the best corner in this sport. But I have a feeling this guy's going to play a lot of years in this game because of that willingness to just get after it and to not be phased if you give up a completion. Come back at it with the same energy on the next play. And if you give up another completion there, don't flush it. Come back at it with the same energy on the next play. Don't allow yourself to be, up in your head. Just it's a spirit you can just feel on certain cornerbacks that you have it or you don't. And you'd ideally love to have it on a guy that's hyper talented, like we kind of do with the Devin Witherspoon. But this guy is playing really good ball, making it a tough decision here for Mike here in the next week here, as you're going to get all the bodies back, who sits, who stays. I have a feeling Woolen's going to continue to rock it out there because he seems to have kind of, hopefully here, kind of found his footing here, especially after this last game. But you do have now Jobe in the reserves at that point, and probably a bit of what can give John Schneider some confidence here to where at this point, I'm not sure that he goes and makes a move at the cornerback position, because he probably feels pretty good about where the depth does stand. But I like that effort. Not necessarily a big hit per se, but I'm putting it under there anyway because I just digged what he was doing there. And man, you love the way he plays the game. Jobe plays the game right from the cornerback position, that's for sure. Just from the defensive position, I would say in general. All right, let's get over to my play call of the week this week. And this was an easy one to go to. Whenever you're going to run double outside corner blitz, you had me at corner blitz. I'm in. Then you had double outside corner blitz. Oh my gosh. Let's take a look at the play call this week that hit just a little bit different.
This one hit different.
And we got our guy out here in this game. And now a shout out to somebody on Twitter who kind of saw this and it put a bulb in my head. So this was not my original idea or anything on this as far as what I think happened here in this play call. But I wonder if this is not something that the Seahawks have. Now, one of the things that's been going on this year with the Seahawks is that they've been dealing with the highest blitz rate in all of football. The most stacked boxes, well, not about the top 5 blitz rate, sorry. But they've been dealing with the most stacked box rate of anybody in football. And stacked boxes can easily become blitzes. And what a lot of coaches, it seems like, are kind of doing just based on every other week we're seeing this executed by our opposition, is that they see the condensed splits, and now I can blitz out of those condensed splits because you have, in these situations, a little bit of what you will see right here. And so somebody on Twitter, mentioned this. Again, I wish I could give his name, give him credit here. You know who you are out there. But this is where they're seeing a look our Seattle here prior to the snap, and that I'm not sure that this blitz was called per se, or as much of Mike McDonald's special where he says, if you see that, this becomes this. If you see that, we're double blitzing the corners off the edge. And as you can see in the formation here, this is a tighter formational split here by the offense. It's the wide receivers are in a little bit of a tighter split towards the line of scrimmage, thus giving your Woolens down here, or your Jobes on the top, a shorter pathway to get to the quarterback. As you can see me kind of draw that line right there. If Woolen's out here, no, you can't see my stupid thing. There we go. Okay, so you can see the tight splits here. If Woolen's out here, he's got to go all the way there to get to the quarterback. Imagine this is where the quarterback sets up in the pocket. If he's here, he's got a quick, easy, straight path there. Likewise with Jobe. Jobe's out here another 5 yards. That's another 10 steps he's got to, 10 steps he's got to kind of run to get to the quarterback if he's going to blitz. So Mike goes, well, if they're going to go in, we're going to go condensed here. We see that, and you're going to be in tighter alignment. You've got 4.2 speed. You should be able to get right back in there. And then Jobe, you come from the other side so that if this running back is on blitz pickup and he takes away our first guy, the second guy has a good chance of likely getting home. And so let's play it out and see what happens. Just that. Now, I'm going to show a couple things on this play. First, Arante Arose completely blows his block on the outside. I don't know what he's done because the Texans actually block this up really well. They don't see it coming, I don't think, but they block it up really well. And as you can see, first things first, Woolen's speed causes the running back to go, yeah, I'm coming over here. He goes right to Woolen. That's your biggest concern. That's your worry. So you'd have this blocked up initially. But what's happened as we come back to this is DeMarcus Lawrence is getting sort of double teamed. He's getting chipped to the double. And it's a weird kind of chip because I think DeMarcus Lawrence Lawrence plays this like a vet. He really does. So rather than most vets here would just sort of dispense with the tight end, like get out of my way, or they'd make this block as quick as possible. Watch what DeMarcus does at the top of the screen. He doesn't full on hold the tight end. He delays the tight end. It's not a holding, it's a delaying, okay? So he delays the tight end, but the problem comes into play here is that Arose is waiting on the delay. So Arose doesn't pick up this blitzer because he's waiting for his man. And ideally on the timing of this play from a Texan standpoint, bang, you hit DeMarcus Lawrence with a quick chip, boom, and you're out in space. You don't get held up 1,000, 2,000, 3. Okay, now I can go. So very smart here by DeMarcus Lawrence as he doesn't try to press this. Thus, he keeps Arose kind of shallow. So Arose doesn't get as deep maybe in a drop as he would if he's just trying to roll that hard. And then it's a real subtle thing, but watch this. If Lawrence goes to his outside shoulder here, if he pushes this upfield, these two guys run into each other. This thing becomes a logjam there. So him slow rolling this, keeping Arcee at this depth here rather than at like the depth here, allows then Jobe to have the free path. So it's a great play call, yeah, but this is also phenomenal execution across the board. Woolen first gets eliminated, bang. Here comes Jobe. He flushes the play, forces the throw, and he gets the free rush because Arcee is too shallow. But wait, there's more. I talked about Ernest Jones. Watch what this man does in coverage on this play to CJ Stroud. And think about this from the perspective of what CJ Stroud's seeing on the drop. Because first and foremost with CJ, he's dropping back, and he's got to understand he's got the double corner blitz coming. So whatever time clock you initially had is going like this. So the speed up is already happening, meaning what initial read he looks at on the field, snapshots taken, that's the snapshot in his head he's going to probably go with as he steps up in the pocket to have to throw it in kind of a panicked fashion. Ernest Jones is the man to watch on this play. Remember the thing I talked to you guys about, the hip flipping, the fooling the quarterbacks. We've seen him do it to Kyler Murray. Watch this here. Flips it back the other way. And so I'm going to this is one where I really want you to watch slow motion. So here's the snapshot from Stroud. Double corner blitz, heating me up. I can feel the fire. It's coming. Oh my God. Arcee just totally blew that block. Oh my God, he's free rushing at me now. I'm going to have to step up here and throw it to that read that I just snapshotted. Steps up. Here's his snapshot read. He can feel this defender has stayed sunk down here. Here's his read. And since he's thinking Jones has picked up this guy, and look at where Jones is at. If you're a quarterback looking at that and you want to throw that ball into here, what part of Jones's body language or how his leverage is faced tells you that there's a threat with him to flip back over and go and pick this ball off? This feels like a pretty safe throw. There's no safeties in the middle of the field. They've blitzed, so you've got the numbers on the back end because of the blitz. 2 corners are blitzed on this play. Beauty of Mike Macdonald's defense, and something you heard about his defense, even from our own Seahawks after they played him in Baltimore, it feels like you're playing with 13, 14 guys on the field. You shouldn't be able to blitz 2 outside corners, and then you still have everything pretty well locked up in coverage to where it's down now to this one read. But even with that one open read, Jones flips the hips, and he can be on his knees and still make the play because he has fooled CJ Stroud so well. And this is the beauty of blitzing. There's no time for the quarterback to go through multiple reads, to think of multiple things through, to let things just develop. You force their decision-making, and you force it fast, too fast. It's a great job, and CJ Stroud, to me, did a really good job in this game throughout of stepping up the pocket. And really, if I'm a coach, I can't blame him for making this throw. It's maybe he could put it a little bit on the back body of the receiver, away from but he doesn't know the leverage of Ernest Jones is coming into this play. He's not considering that that's even a possibility here with Jones. I mean, look at that. Jones's back is to the receiver right now. Completely back to the receiver. As a quarterback, there's no way you're thinking he's going to just make that play and just bang, bang, come back to it like that. Great play by him. Great play call by Mike Macdonald. Well executed by the corners, getting off the edge there. Awesome job by DeMarcus Lawrence as well to throw one more on top with his kind of wherewithal there. Because in holding up Schultz as well, what does he do? He also removes the hot route read there for CJ. So now instead of CJ being able to go, I got the blitz, throw it out to my leaking tight end out in the backfield. And how many times did they hit the leaking out tight end in the backfield in this game, especially out of play action? But you took that away with DeMarcus there. So now he's just got to come back to his pure read down the field. And now he's only got so many numbers to throw to or take the sack. You put him in a pickle, you put him in a bind, and there's no easy outs there. Love the play calling in this football game. Love Mike Macdonald's willingness to dial up more of a pressure on a given week. Not an every week thing that needs to be required, but just that you go on certain weeks where you know you can attack a piss poor offensive line. Let's go at it that way. Let's get after where they are vulnerable and weak. And if you've got an amazingly great offensive line and they pick up blitzes phenomenally, and well, then maybe that's a week where you don't dial it in as much, right? And that you look to tactically choose the tool that's best for the battle of the week. You don't just pick out the same tool every week and say, this is the best for battle. And that's what Mike does, I think, when he's at his best. And it's really come, I think, into full motion here over the past couple of weeks with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the Texans game, because he's really gone a little bit more into his bag. I thank you guys here for watching today. If you can, please do hit the like button. And let's get to the final segment here before we get over to you guys in the chat. And that's tracking and taking a little bit look at what's going on. Man, this NFC West, it ain't getting any easier. Here we go. Let's take a look at it. All right. I'd like to tell you guys, I'd love to inform you guys that we have seen the collapse of the NFC West. That it's all ours from here on out. We can doggy paddle, nay. We can flip over onto our back. Start doing the slow, back kick thing, whatever the hell that thing's called. But that's not going to be the case for us, unfortunately. There's no such thing as easy paths out in the West. It's a harder lot in life. We're a tougher brand of folks. We got to fight and claw and scratch out here. None of them city folks out east. And as you can see here with the NFC West, another week, another lot of wins. You've got the Rams on a 2-game winning streak, Hawks on a 2-game winning streak. Niners got back into the win column as well. 3 teams in this division at 5-2. And then you have the Arizona Cardinals. All of their losses this year collectively, 5 losses this year collectively, by a total of 13 points. They took the Packers up to the brink this past week. They had the game, in hand. I'm a little bit surprised as to why it had to go that way for them in this one, where they seemed to have the thing controlled, but Packers gave them a fight at the end, and they had a 4th and 1.5 yards. And this is definitely a place that if I'm a coach like McDonald watching this game or Clint Kubiak watching this game, I nod my head and I go, yeah, let's not do that. The tush push should be there for about 1 yard. Half a yard, 3/4 of a yard. Once you get into 1.5 yards, it's a little bit too far to pull that sucker off. Unless you got 2 downs to work with, like the Eagles will do that sometimes where they got like 2 yards to go, but they're getting 1 yard each time is how they're rolling it. And so they come out with 1.5 yards, and then Jacoby Brissett, who isn't exactly light on his feet, wasn't able to get stuff. That was pretty much the game for them, and they allowed the Packers to get back into that one. But the Cardinals are not a bad team. And they have had to deal with their share of injuries at certain key positions. They've gotten nothing out of Walter Nolan, their first-round pick, who could have given them some measurable impact here with the rest of that line playing as they've played, which is pretty good. They're down a couple of running backs as well. Certainly the Kyler Murray injury. Thing with the Arizona Cardinals that I keep hammering on is I think that they're about to make a boneheaded error here, which is that they're going to still try to make this Kyler Murray thing work. And that's not because he's playing so well and he's just so on the edge of dialing it in. It's because they don't want to eat the $50 million this offseason. It just kind of all comes down to quite simply that. And when you as an organization are being motivated and moved in any way by monetarily what you're paying a player, as opposed to what's best for the team, probably going to make mistakes, probably not going to be a particularly good team, and probably a reason we haven't seen the Arizona Cardinals ever in the Super Bowl. The Rams play a little bit differently this week. They went out to the London, and they spent a whole week after beating the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. They decided to chill out there for a week on the East Coast. Sean McVay seems to have this whole thing down somehow or another because they have dominated their London matchups, dominated all of them. They've been out there about 3 times. Each time they're kicking butt and taking names. They absolutely drilled the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars were without Devin Lloyd in that game, which made definitely a big difference. That's their most important defensive player probably at this point. I know Trayvon Walker's been a little bit beat up there, but Rams very impressive in how they took them apart and took them apart with ease. Stafford, no Puka Nacua in that game. 3 touchdown passes, Devontae Adams. And so if he's starting to find that rhythm with Devontae, like he's got the rhythm with Puka, and the thing that we've seen with Stafford, be it a Megatron, be it a Cooper Kupp that he comes in off the street and, oh, hey, Cooper, I'm Stafford. Hey, we just got this magnetic instant connection where we're completely on the same page. Or Odell Beckham coming into that Rams team at the end of that run there where those guys were pretty locked in. He seems to, if he's really got a top-notch wide receiver, he really knows how to utilize that receiver and work it to him. Scary development with Devonta Adams coming forward like this is they hadn't been quite in that same lockstep up until this point. And of course, the defensive effort was tremendous, though. You wonder for the Jaguars if maybe they're losing a little bit of steam out there.
Duval.
Just a tiny bit. Then we've got the San Francisco 49ers who play the Atlanta Falcons. I wish we got to play the Falcons at our home because it seems like there's a real big difference between what you get from the Falcons on the road versus the team that they play like when they are at home, where they can be almost like monsters at home from time to time. It's very strange. But the Niners were able to win in that game again. Mac Jones rolling along, and Niners are kind of facing the same sort of decision, a little bit of like the Cardinals are, where you have a quarterback in Brock Purdy that's highly paid, and you've got to now decide, well, wait, Mac Jones is kind of the reason we're in the position we're in right now as much as anything. Like, he's winning us, helping us win these games at the forefront, and Brock Purdy, quite frankly, leading up to his injury, had kind of a string of games where he hadn't maybe been playing at his best. There was a reason in that he didn't have maybe his best supporting cast around him like he did when he first burst onto the scene. But as well, in addition to that, you also have the fact that Mac's just executing this offense better. And most Niner fans can kind of see that, I think, if you're especially not a Brock Purdyite. And so you got an interesting decision for the Niners here once Purdy gets healthy as to whether or not they're going to decide to, continue to roll with the guy that's the hot hand, or if the money wins out on this one, because they don't want to be faced with the deal of having to eat a bunch of dead money this next offseason. And I'll be watching both these two teams to kind of see how they play it. Still, you got to give the Niners credit. I call them the zombie team of the NFL right now, where they should have been gone dead long ago, and yet they still just keep lurching forward week after week, finding a way. And, at this point, they're in the catbird seat to probably go at least make the playoffs as it stands. And so Niners not going away. Fred Warner's injury. You thought this week that the Falcons would run all over them. It would be a circus for them, between Tyler Algiers and Bijan, but not the case. They held up well. Tatum Bethune played a really good game for them on the inside at middle linebacker. Kind of do wonder if that's not a team of the Niners that wouldn't run over there to the Saints here with the season going where it's going and say, hey, why don't you throw us to Mario Davis for a fifth? I can't see why the Niners wouldn't do that at this point. You don't have to sacrifice a lot of future to do that, and could make a lot of sense for them to go down that path. But unfortunately, Seahawks fans, or fortunately, maybe iron sharpens iron here, but unfortunately, I'd say a little bit at the forefront here, our Seattle Seahawks are just not going to get any easy walkthroughs in this division. 2 more games against the Rams in the future. Niners, the last game of the season. It's going to be a bloodbath up until the end. That's all I can say. Good news is maybe some of these guys will beat up on others in our division too at the same time, and we can get a little bit of a bump and a benefit for that. Let me give a little thank you here to the sponsor of this show. And the sponsor of this show is, let me get my kitty. Kitty, can you say sleeper? You say sleeper, kitty? I know you can. Come on. I know you can. Oops, didn't have my one marker on there. Well, come on. There we go. Stupid thing. There we go. So Sleeper is the #1 sports app running right now in the business. They've got your daily fantasy you can get in on. Basketball's about to start up. Want to do a little daily fantasy thing, just have some fun with that. You want to do the weekly fantasy in the NFL. Like if you're like me and your fantasy football league is sucking wind and you're already looking to next year and how you can improve in some of your techniques, well, utilize Sleeper app and you get in there, go and win some money at the very same time as far as also getting yourself improved. Or you can do a little bit like what I like to do, as you can see over here, which is some of the over-under. Been able to, as you can see, win a little bit of money here so far. I'm not big, just do it for fun. I'm not throwing big strokes out there. But got a new picks here for this week with Jalen Hurts less than 30.5 rushing yards. James Cook. Oh, sorry, one sec. James Cook with 15.5 receiving yards and more. And then Daniel Jones with more than 12.5 rushing yards. I went a little conservative this week. We don't have a hot game, so I wasn't sure on my exact picks. But Sleeper, on top of having all of these different contests you can get into, from the fantasy to the over, the unders, they've also got a matching code, NEST. When you use my code NEST, they will match you up to 100% of your first deposit, up to $100. So that's $100 from me to you. And then they've also got a free $20 entry. So just create a login. Don't even use my code. Just create a login. And they will give you a free $20 into your account on that. So it's $100, $120 from me to you. And hey, you show some love to the show at the very same time, which is never a particularly bad thing. But a big shout out and a big thank you to Sleeper for sponsoring the show this year. And I won a couple bets myself. Go win yourself some money over there on that side. They got a lot of variety, a lot more variety than some of these other ones do to me on some of the over and under type picks, where some of those sites could be very restrictive on that. I know in the state of Washington, there have been limitations, but now the site is supposed to be opened up, at least in partial, out here in Washington, and how you can use it. So check out the app and go win yourself some money. Put that football knowledge to the test. We'll mix and match. HHG, how you doing? How you doing? It's good to see you. Jeff Jennings, hello, says free Bradford from this roster. I hate knocking the kid, and I actually like him for a lot of what he could bring to the table, but some of the film does just get frustrating, and some of the cuts I know all of you have seen, especially out there on Twitter, is you just go, buddy, at this point, we just can't have the whiffs and the brutal reps time and time again. Julian Shermer, hello 12s. How you doing, Julian? Chad, hopefully Houston losing to Seattle will give them more motivation to beat San Francisco. I hope so. To your point, I wonder about that, Chad, with this in the situation of Nico Collins this week. And is there going to be pressure to try to get Nico Collins back out onto the field, maybe even faster than you would on a shorter week, as those guys usually have to have that one extra week if it's on a short week with the concussion protocols, but you try to force and get him out there that much faster because you're like, well, this record where we're at right now is make or break it. Like we need all hands on deck on this one because we have no more room for error, and we lose another game and we're basically out of this playoff hunt at this point, or on the edge of being out of the playoff hunt, even in the wide open AFC. So I wonder about that myself, Chad. I tend to think you're going to get their best punch this upcoming week, and we'll see. There's a little bit of a factor I wonder about too, though, is with us being such a physical, get after you kind of team in our spirit, if some of these teams aren't kind of a little beat up after playing us the next week. I think just about every opponent we've played has ended up losing the next week. I know the Niners didn't, but I want to say, no, I guess the Steelers won after our week, so maybe that's wrong. It just felt like that. Little Lance, I think John has to make a serious push for Wyatt Teller, entice them from a day 2 pick and a young right guard with 2 years of club control and Haynes. How can they say no? I think you got to try something, to your point, Lethal. And if you have Anthony playing it like, so let me see where he's at right now. I've been wanting to check this too. And I'm not trying to use the grade as the end all be all here, but this is again back to where it does fit to the tape I even showed you a little bit of today. So, we're looking at the PFF guards. Here's the highest rated guards in the sport. And tell me this doesn't hurt looking at this one right here. Tell me that doesn't make a little single tear drop down your eye. Just a little baby tear fall down the eye. Like, Tate. But we go down here and we're at like top 50. So you have, there's 64 starting guards in the NFL. We're to 50. Oh, we gotta go over to the 100 side of the page here, huh? I gotta go to the bottom 100 rated guards to get to Bradford. Okay. Daniel Falele, not there. Dalton Risner, could have had him, not there. Where is he? I just can't find him. Not there. Anthony Banks. Boy, they're probably buyer's remorse on that Green Bay deal, huh? Ooh. Can't find him. We're getting there. Jordan Moore, Connor Colby, 7th round pick. Connor Colby this year for the Niners is playing better. Okay. All right, that's all right. Dylan Fairchild. Center could have had. He's there we go. There we go. Almost lost him for a second. Like, where's Waldo of the PFF grades, huh? So we got him here. Your 70th rated interior guard in the league out of 78. And boy, we dodged a bullet with the Jonas Savania. Jeez. He's got a two pass blocking grade. Not 20, that's 2.1. 2.1. So yeah, I lead like come back to your point on this. Like we can't do better than that. Like we literally have the bottom of the barrel in performance right now from the position, and we cannot get above that. That's hard to get out there, and it's one where I would say even just to get to a league average place. Imagine if you've got a guy right here that's at a 40 grade, if you got a 65 grade or same like Zeiler's 69, holy hell, the impact that would have on the offense. I got to think he's trying to do something there. Jeff says, can Knud's play right guard? Maybe. Cattle says, Lucas has saved my life, Brandon. He's looking good, man. And I'm so happy for him that he's so comfortable. I think John made such a smart move on this deal and signing him ahead of time and not letting this get down to the line after this year where you've got multiple free agents and now guys have they popped in this final year and you're sort of sitting there going, now we got to pay him all this bag and we could have gotten ahead of this. He got ahead of it. And Lucas is rewarding him for it and him stepping up and playing like this. I've always said with Lucas that I saw him coming out. I'm on record of this on pre-draft videos of saying I think Abraham Lucas is a first-round talent. I've always felt that way about him. It's always been about the health with him, but as a player, he has that. And you can hear it in the way that Mike McDonald talks about him as a player too within that and why they've rewarded him with this contract. He's that guy. And I could go with Wyatt Teller too. I think at this point you could just go to Uchenna. The whole thing has been about the Uchenna. What's he's going to say? Because Uchenna got this dirty shot by Wyatt Teller in preseason last year. So you just go to Uchenna and you go, Uchenna, look, bro, you've gone up against Anthony in practice, right? Like what this is going to do for us down the road if we keep rolling with this. We don't have any other answers. The only answer we have is the guy that kneecapped you last year. Okay, if we agree to let you punch him really hard once in the face when he walks in the building, okay? Like we'll just base the bonuses money for the year and add a year on the end of the deal and that'll make him get some money in hand. But we're giving him that money in the hand so that you can punch him in the face just one time really hard. Like everything you want into it, if you put it all into it, he says he can take it. But we got to do this, man. It's a requirement at this point. Patrick Hine, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Patrick, I really appreciate you for doing that. Folks, do please, if you can, for me, hit that like button, get subbed on up. I appreciate it, just like Patrick has. Thanks for that, Patrick. Tiza, thank you for the $5 donation. Tiza, any chance the Hawks try for Jalen Phillips or Shaheed? Move Josh Jones to right guard? I think Josh has got a little bit of... I think he's got a little bit of history playing guard, I want to say. I'm double checking this. Let's take a look at him real quick here. No, maybe just tackle. So I guess he's just played tackle here in the pros. I thought somebody slipped. No, he did there. I was remembering. I thought it was like Arizona put him at guard at one point. So Arizona did have him at right guard for the 2021 season, which would have been his second year, but wasn't particularly well graded as a guard. And in fact, his highest grades that year came as when he played tackle, because he didn't just play exclusively guard. So it would seem like he wouldn't be comfortable there. Guys, imagine if we kept Damian Lewis and moved back to right guard like we should have. That would have been good for me. I would love to have seen that. Cal says, Brandon Peely here at number 3. He is. It is on just 7 total snaps for the game, Catalyst. But hey, that's if he can give us that, that's a big boon to this defense. You can go, hey, we can put 10 snaps over here to him. We can get 10 run snaps off the back of Byron Murphy for a game here. That could be interesting. Larry Williams, Brandon, would you consider going after a running back one like Derrick Henry? I would. I've warmed up to the thought of it more and more, Larry. Initially, I was kind of like where the Devon A-Chain rumor came out. I went, ooh, I don't know if I quite understand that one. With where you're at, because running back health has held up well, and Hololani's pretty functional behind that. But I then come back to value and that you may not have the players available for the positions you'd like to upgrade, i.e. like guard, right guard, or center. And so you come back to, well, where can we improve the team? Where can we help things out? And I think that running back is one where that is a possibility. I think Breece Hall, Devon A-Chain, and yes, I think even Derrick Henry would be three different guys you could take a look at as possibilities here. The one part that is the fly in the ointment, Larry, for me with Derrick Henry is where I've tended to see him as a running back type in my life, which is that he is a guy who that if you give him a hole, he will punish defenses. If you can keep a lack of penetration into the backfield, even to where there's not maybe a big hole there, but he's now able to get up to full speed by the time he gets to the line of scrimmage, he is dangerous. He is he's absolutely just one of the better backs we've seen in modern NFL history, and he still is a guy averaging 5 yards a carry this year, who still is performing really well, albeit the fumble problems have popped up a bit this year. Sometimes that just kind of happens randomly, but he hasn't been a bad fumbler throughout his career. He'd give you an element of physicality and size that you wouldn't have. But the part that I would worry about, Larry, and that you wouldn't be able to get the most out of him at this point is the fact that your offensive line still allows so much penetration and still allows these running backs to have to reroute instantaneously off the handoff. You're supposed to go here. There's a guy there. You got to get back over here. And that it's going to be hard, I think, for Derrick in that way to find much hole or find much life here in Seattle because of the nature of how we're run blocking right now. But at the same point in time, is he going to cost a lot? Like, I don't think he'd cost even a third round pick at this point in a trade deadline deal. So no, that wouldn't be the costly point. So, for a fourth round pick for something in day 3 land, that's a massive upgrade over what you have in Hololani, essentially your third back. He becomes now, your number one. And then you move around Walker and Charbonnet as kind of a rotational role. And I could see the smartness in this as well. The team is obviously worried a little bit with Walker on how he'll hold up over the season with some limiting of his touches. And with Charbonnet, who I do like and don't think it's his fault that he's not got a better yard per carry average, but he's not lighting the world on fire either and preventing you from, going, well, we can't go after this running back because we got Charbonnet cooking. It's like, well, he's doing fine. But Henry's obviously been a bit of a difference maker for the position and still has some of those difference-making parts to his game. Free truth, I would rather have a Mafe out on the edge taking that chance for a great play. If you could solidify his run game, which I don't think is bad, I would allow him to do that. Oh yeah, he's a good run defender, I think, overall. Boo, HawksNest, is Quincy Williams an option? Will linebacker from the Jets. He's about to return from injury. It's somebody that they might possibly look at there, Boo. Yeah. I don't know a ton about Quincy and I don't know if I've scouted a lot of him at the pro level, but I do think he is I thought he was a Will. Let's see. Where they had him, they started him at Will and they moved him to Mike or something. He's done both. Yeah. He's mainly a Will, though. Yeah, he could be interesting. You can see here with his grades down at the bottom here that he's not too bad. So he's definitely a Will linebacker. And oh, geez, what happened here? What in the name of Jehoshaphat? So he's only played 166 snaps so far this year, but the past couple of years he's been very well graded. Will linebacker. It's a great suggestion. I like that one. I hadn't thought it and hadn't watched a lot of his game, but that would be a guy you could see them potentially gravitating towards. For sure, I'd rather see a vet guard, right guard. I'm for it. And that's the one where there's, to me, two teams. We know there's few teams out there that are actually in a position to to, and Tiza, I didn't forget your donation on the other part. I'm going to get to that. Sorry. I got that Josh Jones rant. I lost my place here. Yeah, that's where to me, the Wyatt Teller and the Kevin Zeitler options are right there to me. Two vets, two guys should be able to come in and accommodate to the offense really fast and get rolling and would be immediate improvements. Tiza, as far as Jalen Phillips goes, he makes me a little worried because of just I think he's got a couple of Achilles injuries. Actually, let me just look it up so I'm not speaking out of turn here. Jalen Phillips. Let's go take a look at what he's been dealing with. Maybe. Yeah, so we got the ruptured Achilles. He's had ACL. So he's had ACL reconstruction. He's had a torn Achilles. Injuries were an issue for him, I think, going back even in college as well. Multiple times over injuries in college. Tease, I would really be avoiding Jalen Phillips to me. I just think he's not a good enough player for the injury risk part that he brings. Shaheed is a guy that does make some sense, Tiza, because that is a guy that could give you quick acclimation to the offense because he knows Kubiak's system. He's a burner. He's a guy that can stretch a defense out and make you have to really be worried about that. If you're going to leave him one-on-one with a guy, you need to bring the safety help over the top. He's in the last year of his contract. Can't think that you're going to be able to ask a lot from the Saints' perspective because of that, because there's not the club control. We again come down to like that day sort of 3 pickish. And it's a little bit like the running back question that was asked, Tiza, where to me it's a little bit of, okay, you can't upgrade these other places you want to upgrade, but hey, can you reinforce and get some insurance in place for positions that might be doing pretty good? If Torrey Horton goes down, your receiving room looks kind of a lot thinner. Even though I know he's not had a demonstrably huge impact, he still has brought something there that you feel like you're losing if he goes. And obviously the same of a Cup or a JSN. So I think from a receiver standpoint, be it a Shaheed or even a Chris Olave to this point, if it's not going to cost a lot, though Olave I'm a little more reticent on. But with Shaheed, fairly inexpensive. Shouldn't cost both contractually and for cap-wise, and you can see how it would help out the receiving core. The only worry I have with Shaheed is just you do sort of need right now the guys on the back end of this roster from the receiver position standpoint to do the special teams thing. And right now, Cooper Kupp and JSN are not going to be really special teams guys for you. Horton's kind of locked into being your punt returner. And then you'd have Shaheed, who wouldn't really be a guy doing the special team stuff for you, I wouldn't think. So you might get a little lean there to that, but I'm sure there's a creative way to get around it. Michael Bicknell, thank you for the $10 donation. Michael, very, very kind of you. The comparison of Bradford Reek to Sundell Jobe is wild. The guys with the lower upside play the hardest and give more effort. Reek put it together, but we still need to see it consistently. Go Hawks. Thank you for the dono, man. And I agree all the way down the line with you on this one. I think you do right to kind of put together Reek and Bradford. I think it's very apt to put those two together. As apt as it is to put Sundell and Jobe, I'd throw maybe Drake Thomas in there as well. And many of us are so passionate about football that I think we take it for granted that these guys that get on the field all have that passion in full, all, are going to lay it all on the line every game and give you everything they got every game, and that they're fully connected, playing and play out in that way. And I think it's something that's sort of developed to me in watching in recent years, and to understand that it's not as much that way. That's a presupposition that is sometimes correct, sometimes not. And that, in fact, we know, Michael, that it goes a lot into the scouting process for general managers. Or, they use terms like all about ball is life. Do you love it? They're looking for that for these prospects because they understand you can have a guy that's a 97th or a 99% athlete like a Tariq Woolen. And if you don't have the connectedness to the game of that love and want and will, you're not really probably going to see that upside ever really reached. that there is a bit of a requirement for that. And there's certain, it's not an all or nothing thing, right? Some guys have some of that juice to get there and it's partially in them. Some guys are full tilt and competitive as hell and they just get after it with every inch of their being. And it's a spectrum. But unfortunately with those two guys you talked about, the spectrum has found them in the past at times on that other end where you feel that thing that is missing. Now the good part is I've said with both those two guys, and the part that I would say to each of them that even if it's just you can only maintain this for a half a season and something you can't consistently do year in and year out is lock it in for a half season in both of your two accounts. Because if you do, you'll earn yourself a lot of money moving into this off season. And likewise, if you put on tape what you've put on tape in recent years or last year and a half especially, you're going to cost yourself a lot of money. And so if the love of the sport ain't motivation in itself enough, this should be. The money element should be. But then you also, like you say, Michael, see the other side of this, the flipping of this coin, which is you can see what happens with players who might be of marginal talent or slightly above average talent. I mean, Sundell's case, I know he's very athletic for a center and moves really well there, but obviously not your biggest, baddest dude out on the field. Jobe the same way. But what hunger can get you, or if you're talented one kind of way, what that can turn you, can allow you to be a functional player in this league. So it works to the other side as well. Maybe you're talent deficient, but you got that love for the game, but you are all about ball, but you study endlessly, but you're constantly working on your game to improve yourself. This is why it's such an inexact science. Scouting guys for the draft, scouting guys out there for free agency for who to bring in, who to not. It makes it a very tough part of the puzzle where it's not just purely the guy's raw goods of ability, what he can do on a field. You got to put that part into it too. I do think we still need to see a little more consistently from Reek. One game does not make a whole season, and hopefully he can stay in tuned like he did this last week in the same way down the line. Like I said, there's a lot of money for him in it if he can do it. Michael Bicknell or Phoebe Moore Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. Byron Murphy splitting the double was my favorite play. Murphy splitting the double, he does a lot of that. And thank you for the donation. I was posting up on my Twitter here a cool stat that Brett Coleman posted on this, which I thought was pretty cool, which is interior defensive line pressures. Let's show you guys it right here. So interior defensive line pressures from 1 tech, 2 tech, or 2I. 2I is 2 inside. So you're just to the inside shoulder then essentially of the player from that alignment. Guard, I think, essentially, right? Yeah, I think it's the 0 tech, 1 tech, 1 tech, and then you're right to the inside. Rather than splitting the shoulders, you're on the shoulder of usually the right guard, strong side of the formation. So 1 tech, 2 tech, 2I. What do you deal with on those alignments specifically? More often than not every time, but more often than not, you're going to deal with double teams. 1 tech, 0 tech, 2I. This is only just doing the 1 tech, 2 tech, 2I. So it's not actually doing the 0 tech, which is heads up over the center in your alignment, which is another nose tackle place. But what this shows is that Byron Murphy is right now leading the league in pressures from that alignment at 16. And he's beating out Vita Vea, Jordan Davis, 2 former first round picks themselves, Kobe Turner, dynamic player, DJ Reader, fairly dynamic player. Sheldon Rankins, Moro Ajomo, Dexter Lawrence, et cetera. And so what is making this impressive, and this is to Phoebe Moore's point on splitting the double teams, is that he's getting this pressure through double teams. It's not just pure pressure or one-on-one. It's that you're dealing with those doubles and you're still finding a way to create that pressure, which just shows you how potentially dominant to me Byron Murphy could be here as we get down the line because of the fact that he's doing this time and time again with the double teams. And once you remove those, at least semi-consistently, that's going to then, to me, up his productivity all that much more. Against like last year, where Leonard Williams is just doing such dynamic things to the other side, he might be the best playing interior defensive lineman in the sport right now, that there's not the draw to go see what that could be. There's not that draw to go find that sort of upside, proverbially, especially with how you're kind of looking right now with your nose tackle position outside of Byron Murphy. And so there's not the pull there, but down the line, don't be surprised if when you does get to that spot, the explosion you might see when now he's just getting one-on-ones all the time. And what a problem he can be in that way. But he's even being a problem in the way now and what he's doing with it. which is very impressive. Lance, I literally refuse to believe Haynes is worse on the field. He must just disrespect the coaches or something. Hard to say what's going on there. We were watching in training camp. He wasn't out there practicing. Then we came back a day or two later, and he had like a brace on his arm. And then they said there was a pec thing going on with him, but he wasn't. And they had him at center early on in camp. I have to believe that there's something that the coaching staff just doesn't necessarily particularly like with Haynes, or that they just seem to have maybe missed on this one. If he's not out on the field here in this next upcoming week, you're not seeing enough from Bradford on tape to believe that you should be rolling with this. And if anything, he's going to get Sam hurt. So maybe we avoid that. Preachers with me. Bradford will cost us games because of stupid decisions. I'm worried about that being the case, man. I was talking to Brendan about this on the B&B show yesterday, and Brendan brought it up that, there are these teams that have good teams on football. We all remember the Charger team that's historically known for having the best offense and best defense, but the special teams cooked them, kept them from even getting very far in the playoffs. Packers ran into this against the Niners a couple of years ago, but they can also be parts of your team. It can be a player on your team. It can be a position on your team you've not addressed. And I'm very worried about this, also understanding that how many times over the last 10 years have we seen the offensive line sink our great hopes? And specifically, there could be a position or two within those offensive lines that sink our greater hopes for the season. Lethal says, I've never seen Tariq be this physical at the catch point. No, he's not as much a guy that'll do it like. He's not what I call a moment of the truth manglers. It's a scouting term that I came up with a couple of years ago because I was trying to figure out a term for what you reference to a cornerback who doesn't necessarily have ball skills, but has that adeptness to be able to time it to where ball hits the receiver's hands. And he's just, he's like a karate chopper in there. And Reek's more of a guy trying to come back and sort of knock it down with a hand this way or that way. Like you see in my thumbnail for the literal show today. You can see in the thumbnail where he's twisting back, trying to just kind of knock the ball back away. He's just not kind of wired as much in that way, though, too. Pedro, is Drake Thomas better in coverage than Knight? I would say yes. I mean, the part of this that's odd to me a little bit is Drake Knight was really good in coverage last year. There was times that you had him matched up on Marvin Harrison one-on-one and locked up Marvin out of the slot. But yeah, Drake's got a kind of another gear to his game, I think, as far as coverage go. I think Knight, though, is probably better the tackler and better at getting off blocks, better size. Usually I look at Knight as a great run stopper first and second down, but I see Thomas as more of an overall first through third down player. I think that's a fair assessment. Martin, definitely was strange game. Good to get the win, though. Woolen will be here for the rest of the season at the very least. I agree. I love that sound clip. Thank you, Lethal. John Dowd. I know Josh Jones has played guard. When he gets healthy, I would try him at right guard or Christian Haynes when he gets back. Well, I'm open to just about anything at this point. I mean, I'm to your point, John. I come back to it going, look, you've tried this experiment out for a long period of time, and we're seeing regression more than we're seeing improvement at this point, and that should not be the case. And when that becomes eventually the case, and you've given this so much of a run, you eventually got to come to a point where you call the ball. Maybe he's just tearing it up in practice or something, but. Sean McLeod, will Oots help the run when he gets back if the box lines up? Will Oots help? Oots. You better believe Oots will help, Sean. You better believe he will. If the box lightens up, you actually will feel his impact, I think, a little bit more. Right now, when you do see the stacked boxes, you can see an Oots come up in there, Sean, and he lays the wood on a linebacker in the hole, but you've got a safety collapsing down. You got the corner running like hell into the backfield. Everybody's just selling out for the run. And so it doesn't feel as hardy even at the end there with Oots and I think that Tampa Bay game a little bit, because that's just what you're facing. But yeah, once you move out the box and you go lighter and it's more of a pure will linebacker, he gets to greed in the hole like we saw him do the double sauce on earlier in the year. When we saw him drop
He took us in the house and served us pancakes.
The pancake block on the twosome. As we saw with that, take out the box, he gets just pure linebackers and he can go feast. Brian, didn't AZ play in the Super Bowl? I meant win a Super Bowl. They did play in one. Jesus, Seahawks need a young stud number 2 wide receiver such as Lemon Lane Bell. I could see him drafting a guy this year. Jesus. Kind of depends on what they think about Torrey Horton's upside. I think Cooper's played pretty good ball for them too. Either we lose the Colts and the Rams. If we beat the Falcons, I see only 2 more losses. I see the Rams losing to the Colts, Bucks, and us. We take the division. Well, the Rams already beat the Colts, Lethal. But I like where your head's at. I'm with that. I can see it going that way. I think we do split with the Rams. Colts is a tough one. Kind of the Falcon game to me. I think one of the Colt Falcon game you probably lose. Especially guys, we got to play the Falcons at home. Max says, make Pumpkin do the picks. Yeah, I thought the Rams had already beaten them. I was like, yeah, they already played them, didn't they? Max, I hope we draft edge, cornerback, or lineman early rounds. Hope we can get wide receiver later in the draft like Horton. You can find some value there, that's for sure. Donnie, how you doing? Paul, what's up? Good to see you. Larry says, not sure you answered this, but what would you think about them going after Derrick Henry? I'm just not sure if K9 Sharps get the job done. Yeah, I give you, if you can go back, Larry, I did a pretty good expansive answer on this, but I'm open to doing it. I just think you aren't necessarily going to be able to address the positions in at the trade deadline that you maybe want to address, that they're just not available. And if that's the case, and you do have the money you have in your hip pocket like the Hawks do, $25 million of cap space, reinforcing a running back position that has recently, historically, seen the position sometimes get decimated by injuries is not the worst of moves to make. I don't think Derrick Henry is going to cost you a lot. I think I'd feel the same way here a little bit like a Devon Achane or a Breece Hall, where it can't hurt. It only just deepens up the running back room, gives you another weapon there for Kubiak to utilize, just further reinforces your commitment to running the ball. And I think it'd help. I'm a little worried with Derrick Henry in that he's a build-up speed guy. He's a guy that does his damage when he gets the opportunity to get up to full speed by the time he hits the hole. So if you have a lot of penetration, guys pushing guys in the backfield, Larry, you're not going to really maximize Derrick in the right way, because you could see him getting a handoff and a guy's got his leg wrapped around an arm wrapped around his leg, and he just can't get up to full speed. And he doesn't have that sort of shiftiness like we sometimes see with a Walker, and even a little bit of a lesser degree with Charbonnet, to be able to just get away from those early penetrative plays. So that's the one part I'd worry with him. But I mean, if the cost was not that much for draft capital, I'd still be willing to take the swing. Having a guy like Derrick Henry in the playoffs when bodies are tired and you're playing in the elements, and not the worst of things to have. Patrick says Anthony Bradford's nickname is Anthony Badford. Let's go get Jackson Powers. Goomba, anyone essing on Bradford, but Sundell is just as bad or even worse at times. Sundell's had some bad games too, Goomba. That's for sure. That is for sure. I think he's had a little bit more of there's a light there with him. And I think the thing with Sundell is that he's also kind of a first-year starter doing this. Whereas with Bradford, this is like, what, year 4 we're into? You know, of him having a good amount of run out there and the lack of improvement through that period. But it's not like Sundell's lighting the world on fire either. To your point. Herbicide, going to have to draft a stud right guard and center in the draft. Amen. D-Law and Chenna holding it down. They are. Mythic says drafting Arroyo over Ratledge is stupid on so many levels, and I thought the same thing at the time of the pick. Yeah, it's one that stings the nostrils. Michael Myers says, where was Gray Zabel on the PFF scores? He wasn't. He was okay. He's right in the middle of the road. Where are we at with him? I lost track of him here. Oh, wait. Sorry, I'm on the wrong thing here. He's right. Number 8th. So he was your 8th highest rated player. 72 snaps with a 60.1 grade. Pretty evenly graded between pass blocking and run blocking. 60.1. Oh, where was Zabel on the guard rank? Sorry, you guys. My bad. I did not show that, did I? I did not. Uh-oh. All right. So Zabel is just ahead of Trevor Penning and Laken Tomlinson with a 53.1 grade right now. So he's the 53rd highest rated guard. Number one's Quentin Nelson. Yeah, I'll show you the number one here. So you got Quentin Nelson, Kevin Dotson are the 1-2. Joel Bitonio for the Browns at left guard for them at number 3. Steve Avila, Rams getting good guard play here early on. Quinn Myers, Brady Christensen, Ed Ingram. Ingram will be a guy to me that's kind of like that one's kind of like a dark horse thing for me, where I think he's on a 1-year deal for the Texans, and the Texans might find themselves this year out of it at the deadline, especially if they lose this week. Kind of wonder about the potentiality of seeing if you could swing a pick with them. It's probably impossible, but Baha, you're a real one, Brando, the commando of the 12s. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Patrick, I think our best bet to take the division is Detroit beats Rams in Houston and Indy beats San Francisco. Otherwise, we got to win the rest of the division games. I think that's probably pretty accurate, Patrick. And very well just could be the bottom line. We got to win the rest of the division games kind of regardless a little bit on this. You know, but that would be the pathway. Tenacity, I think the tier thing was because Bradford was rated worse than a backup guard. The tier thing was about Tate Ratledge, because you guys, that as somebody else was mentioning above, that was kind of the channel favorite when we were coming up to pick as the guy to buttress up what you had done with Zabel. So you got Zabel at 1, you come back and you get day 2, Tate Ratledge, and you slide him on into guard and you go kick ass and take names. And we didn't go that approach. And I do think that Arroyo is developing and showing you some ability to get down the field and be a chunk guy that we thought and hoped he could be when drafted at tight end. It's just also, though, that you go back to and go, what? And certainly this is one of those arguments, I guess, of what's good for the short term, what's good for the long term. Does Ratledge help the Seattle Seahawks out in 2025 more than Arroyo helps out the Seahawks in 2025? I kind of think so. Kind of thought so on the day of the draft. Does maybe Arroyo long-term help out the Seattle Seahawks more than Tate Ratledge would have on that? Maybe. Moonman, I think we should seriously consider Chris Olave. He's the perfect number 2 wide receiver complement to JSN. And we need at least, I believe, a dynamic duo wide receiver group to make us even more dangerous. Not a bad point at all, Moonman. And Chris Olave is certainly a very talented guy. Maybe would have some chemistry between him and JSN going back from their days at Ohio State. There's only a couple things that have made me a little reticent on this one with Olave deal. The first one being that, number one, I don't think the Cooper Kupp has played particularly bad. I don't think that Cooper Kupp's getting a lot of opportunities, much like an AJ Barner. I think you have 44% of your target share of this offense going to Jackson Smith. That's the highest in the league. And you're throwing the ball at a minimum level. And so I'm not against bringing on Olave, but just the issue to me becomes that he's going to come into an offense where he's very likely to not be targeted very often still as you continue on even after making that trade. And then you are going to have to sign JSN to a big contract extension this offseason. And you've got Olave going into the final year of his deal. He's probably going to want to start to be talking about here as he's heading into the 5th year, I think, of his deal of getting an extension himself. And now maybe you can go to lobby and say you haven't done enough to earn that extension, but it's not that he won't probably be asking for it. And even if he just plays on his $15 million a year deal, now you signed JSN to a $42.5 million per year deal. You've got the 15 on the back end there. Now you're trying to probably cut Cooper Kupp. So now we're back to eating like probably $15 million or 10 to 15 in dead money for Cooper Kupp. What I'm kind of getting down the bottom line on that, Moon Man, is that you could be very well walking into a year where you're definitely ready to go for it, where you've got some cap space, but you're seeing something like $65 million of your cap space allotted to the receiver position, or $70 million of your cap space allotted to the receiver position. And that's not bad in itself. But the thing that just makes me most hesitant on this one comes down to you're a running-based football team. Getting super dynamic at the edges at the receiver position could kind of get wasted a little bit because you're just not going to give them the target share, utilize them enough to validate putting that amount of resources into that position versus, let's say, putting some of those resources as well, Moon Man, into something else. Because if you're paying that $15 million to Chris Olave, that's $15 million that's not going to maybe a top-notch offensive lineman that you could go pay for, or to another position, or to go finally find a truly difference-making edge somewhere out there. And it is a little bit of not just a cheap deal at that point, but it's the draft capital and the salary cap he's taken up that is then removed from other prospective deals you could go out there and make. And is that the best way? Is that the best team building concept? So I'm not against it wholly, but I just have some reticence with it because of a couple of those little items within the deal that just have me a bit going, I don't know if it's quite there. I think another team is probably going to come in and jump for him that might be a little bit more of a team that's got a willingness to throw the ball a little bit more. I think Damian Martinez got released. Yeah, he got cut. John Dowd, Sundell is going to get better. Bradford shown no improvement. Yeah, exactly. Patrick says Brandon needs to do at least one Christopher Walken impression per live. That was great on FN. Oh, thank you, Van. We'll get you guys at some point here. I'll give you a walk in here. Appreciate it. Feeling good about this team. Bye week, yes. Trade deadline. Go hot, John. Turn it up. Big time. Walken wants to see a move. Walken wants to see a right guard. Wyatt, Teller, or Zeitler. I'll take either. Give me one. Yes. Nathan says, looking forward to the Colts game. We're planning on that being our one game a year we intend. Ooh, man, that looks like a good one. Jones is just rolling there. Indiana. Indy. Martin says, do we need someone standing beside Kubiak to say, not right now, Clint? Every time he looks at Milrow play package or a trick play, how about we just stick with one of the top rated quarterbacks right now? I think that discussion is very much coming into play. I do, Martin. And I think you could see this, for instance, on the fact that we're seeing over the last couple of games that Jalen Milrow is inactive. And so you're sort of dispensing with, okay, they're not coming out and saying it, but they're sort of saying it by just doing that. And that, I think, does put the measure here of a good, this is the thing, just recognize what is and isn't working. Things are going to work, things are going to fail, but keep at the forefront that, is it working or not? Don't just keep staying with something and running with it just because you had some plan for it in the offseason. And so they've shown that propensity to kind of lean that way already, and I estimate that they're going to continue to do so on this. CD says, I find it funny ever since the Bucs game where we said we wouldn't go away from Milrow packages. Milrow has been inactive. Just the matchups this week, played out such with the numbers game, and it gets complicated. There's a lot of stuff, and there's things, a lot of factors. You're just taking into account this and that, and over here, and want to put this in, and then this, and then and he's inactive. Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny too. Nathan says, Milrow's no Taysom Hill. Indeed, he's not. Nathan says Falcons at home are not intimidating. Yeah, I don't know if the word would be intimidating, in that I don't think they're monsters. Maybe that was not the greatest of use of wording, I guess. But they just feel like a different team playing at home versus on the road to me. Buccaneers were just able to edge them out at home. Really good Buccaneer team that was much healthier at that time. Barely able to edge them out at home, and that took the field goal kicker, I think, missing a couple of kicks in that game. So it's more of that they're just a bit of a different. Oh yeah, I think Nathan, you're thinking that we're playing them at home. No, we play the Falcons on the road. Besides, Zabel looks better than Pooney. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Also, he's playing left guard, Pooney's playing right guard. So, got to keep in mind with Zabel, there's a little bit of a higher degree of difficulty for the left guards than the right guards, who tend to get the double team help more often than not. Martin, I know he was a first round pick, but he's still a rookie, so I'd give Zabel some leeway. Yeah, and specifically for that reason I just mentioned. Left guards have the 3 tech off their outside shoulder. It's a lot of one-on-ones. You're going up against the most dynamic, athletic big men on the defensive line that are not edges, of course, versus the right guards that strong side of the formation. Most plays go to the right side. So you're going to, sometimes it flips, but most plays are going to go to that right side. And so most of the time you're going to have that right guard with a center help in there. And so when a guy's sucking wind at right guard as he's getting that center help versus the left guard that's out on the island that's got to just kind of hold up, got to take that into account between the 2 points of evaluation on the 2 different points of positions. Anyway, keeping up with the NBA, FBI thing. Yeah, not a good look for the NBA, especially on the start to their season like this. Horrible look. Players are so stupid. You're going to get caught. Getting YouTube issues? Sorry about that, guys. Catalyst. Thank you for the $2 donation, Catalyst. It's been so nice to have Uchenna back. 5 sacks. Indeed, Uchenna looks like he's back to really at the full height of his powers, and that he's gotten off these injuries and he's feeling good. And, they've got really, I keep saying stage is set, but I just feel like stage is set. You put out all the props are out there. We're about to pull up the curtain. You're getting back the full total of your defense for the very first time this season. First game of the season, you didn't have Uchenna. First game of the season, you had Emanwari out very quickly. And then you were kind of starting, you haven't been decimated by injuries necessarily, but just that it's nice getting everybody back and that you see the full plan in place, including having 4 pretty high quality edges that you can trot out there. Whether it's Uchenna, whether it's Boye, whether it's Derek, whether it's DeMarcus Lawrence, you're going to be able to just keep rolling these guys out there fully fresh, able to go 100 miles an hour every time they're out there, and should make them all that much more effective. Long day at the office for whoever's going to play tackle against this team for the rest of the season, because you're not going to wear a guy down. You're not going to be able to get to the third and a half quarter and be like, well, we've got the time possession control. This guy's got 58 snaps on his back. He's about to tap out. I can just lean on him now. Instead, it's like, man, I'm getting another fresh guy. I'm a little tired. And here's another fresh guy going up against me. I'm a little winded here. Patrick Ian, like Zabel said, at Texas game, run left, baby. Just run left. I love that. Pretty sad when center and right guard add up to 1 interior lineman. It's kind of the nature and the beast. Appreciate you, Patrick. My pleasure. Love my team. Super Bowl run now. Not later. Not 26. But now, Patrick. Kendrick, I haven't really been paying attention to Vikings games, but as Will Freeze looked like he's worth the contract to give him. I know they have a bunch of injuries on the O-line, but has he held up? I think maybe he's part of those injuries. I want to say I haven't been super tracking them, but every time I watch that Viking offensive line, my goodness, just seems like they're just getting Krijash. I guess he's played every game. He's clocking in at a 58.9 grade. So quite a drop from last year's 86.9. He's at 58.9 right now. Good in pass pro, but seems to have some issues as a run blocker this year. So maybe I guess he's the only guy on that Viking offensive line that's doing anything from a pass pro standpoint. CD Woods, with Bradford being as bad as he is, I'm almost fine with grabbing Wyatt and hoping Nwosu doesn't kill him. I was mentioning earlier on this CD, we tell Wyatt he's going to come here, we'll convert his base to bonus, and we'll put some void years action down the line, but we get money in his hand right now. The one qualifier is he's just got to get punched in the face really hard once by Uchenna Nwosu. It's kind of like that now we're even things. I don't like that it's come to the CD Woods, but I think desperate times, desperate measures, and I think Wyatt would be willing. I think he'd understand. You cost me a year. But I think you have to do this John Schneider standpoint. I know he's holding on and hoping, and I think if you had Bradford up around where you'd have a Wyatt or where you'd have a Zeitler, if he was up around like a 60 graded player and giving you that performance, and there weren't the whiff snaps and the bad snaps like I showed earlier in the show where 5-step drop, he's walked back into the quarterback's kitchen instantaneously, well, then maybe you feel differently. But when he is bottom of the barrel, when he is continuing to regress and trend downwards and not upwards in an offense which should be helping him, I think at that point you call the ball and you say, we just got to do what we got to do now here on this. This can't be the thing to sink the ship offensively this year. And there's a risk of it being that, I think. CD, we got to do something. If we make the playoffs, we go up against the edges, for example. They can spam Jalen Carter on Bradford and just win. I like how you put that. That's very true. So I say this stuff can eventually come and rear its ugly head at the worst of times. These deficiencies, these greatest weak links of the team. And so if you have an opportunity to address it, it's one thing if you're 3/4 of the season and you're stuck with what you got and you got to just make the plan of it in the offseason. But if you're halfway into the season now and you can actually do something about it, and I know it's hard, I'm not saying it's easy, but I got to feel like you can find something better than league worst play at the position right now. I don't feel like that's a bridge too far. Martin says, I would rather spend money on the O-line improvements that will help our running game and go with more or less the same wide receiver room next season. I think we'll need a defensive end next year's season as well. I find myself in the same place. I think if I was more pass happy, I'd be more, central around trying to get more of the pass catchers and dynamic elements. But to my eyes, when I watch the tape with Cooper Kupp, he's getting open. Sam's not targeting him. And Torrey's very close to me to having, he's already had a couple games where he's shown you a little bit of what he can do, but I think he's right there on the edge of cracking through too. I like our receiver room overall. Could it get a little deeper? Yeah. Could you, it's like the running back room. You could add a little bit more on, it wouldn't hurt. But I do think you could risk on this too, grabbing a guy and just kind of coming to find you're not using him very much. He's out there as either just kind of a decoy or every once in a while some kind of counter punch that you utilize. Patrick says, I don't think Wentz wanted to play last night. Certainly wasn't happy. Boy, the body language. Holy mackerel. You both feel bad for the guy, and then you also kind of go, you gotta bury all that thing inside, You love the emotionality and you understand where he's coming from because some of those snaps, it's just a freaking pig pile. There's nothing he can do. And he's been put into a really tough situation there. And the Vikings are weird. Look at all the Vikings did to go in this offseason, all the resources they put in and have done the last couple of off seasons. And team just feels a little bit almost kind of broken, I guess. The Chargers with their offensive line in the position Brian Flores couldn't go after that. But yeah, Wentz looked just, that's as defeated, I think, as a quarterback can look. Trevor, do you think we should start Christian Haynes over Bradford? I have to understand. I'd have to think that this is the move to make at this point, Trevor. He's supposed to come back healthy now. And the baseline of performance for Bradford at this point. Okay, he's like not the worst right guard in the league, but probably a top 5 worst right guard in the league in the level of play this year so far. Can Haynes supersede that, even marginally? Then isn't Haynes the answer at that point? But I don't know if the coaching staff has any real confidence in Haynes. Remember, this is a guy, Trevor, that they had taking snaps at center. Guys, you're onboarding a new offense. You got a right guard that's young that you're trying to bring along, and you're going to then first move him out of position to center and then not have him take right guard reps. So I'm a little confused on what's going on with Haynes, to be honest with you there, Trevor. You guys might hear I've got some construction going on next door, so if you hear some banging in the background, it's just that. Keith Matasuka on Vikings podcast, they suggested that Jordan Addison may be available. What do you think? It's a little bit for me, Keith, like the people asking me about Chris Olave. You always got to understand when making these moves, and I know receiver is a very sexy position, and it's one that does tend to sort of dominate the fans' perspective of that. This is what you got to go get. You need receivers. The receivers are but it doesn't really, to me, make a lot of sense right now going and getting a receiver. Number one, Addison's going to cost money on the cap next year. So there's that to be paid. They're going to want some decent draft capital for a Jordan Addison that, if I'm not mistaken, was, I believe, a first or second round pick recently, somewhere in there, high second round pick, if that's what he was. So they're going to want probably a day 2 pick back, like a third round pick. So that's draft capital that could be going to offensive line. You're putting to wide receiver. That's money that could be going to other places that you're putting to wide receiver. The other thing then to consider to me on this, Keith, is that you're building a defensive first team that wants to run the ball and be very balanced. So stocking up with a lot of grade A wide receivers kind of is not the greatest way to build a team when you want to be that. And I would just reference to you on this, Keith, look back to the teams prior to just Mike McDonald arriving here. And that, you're spending money on Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and a first round pick to JSN, yet you want to be this run-centric team and you want to be committed to running the ball. Like it just doesn't quite go together, and there are a finite amount of resources in order to build and establish the kind of attack you need to establish to be a good running football team, i.e. more resources put into the offensive line. Specifically, I would say monetarily speaking isn't the worst way to go with it, but just more resources, period. And so that's the driver to me of this offense as we go in the future. Is quarterback certainly is at the forefront, but I would say that if you go to the next positional group behind that, Keith, it would not be wide receiver for me. It would not be tight end for me. It would not be running back for me. It would be the offensive line in order of importance. And for instance, we're talking about right now, Keith, having a right guard that's playing like almost league worst for the position. A center in Jalen Sundle, he's like a top 35 rated, top 30 rated center. So he's not playing particularly good there. There's a lot of room for improvement on that group, even with how good you feel about your tackles and Zabel. So it just doesn't, to me, add up to where getting a receiver. And just the last point I'll make on this, Keith, is that 44% of the target share of the passing offense is going to JSN. I don't think that that's going to change with an Addison coming in or another receiver coming in. You're targeting JSN because teams are stacking the boxes and they're leaving JSN one-on-one on the outside. When they peel out the stacked boxes and they start to double JSN on the back of peeling out of those stacked boxes, now your running game is probably going to go very well. So you're not going to be in the next couple of years ever a high volume passing offense. You're always going to want to run the ball. You're going to need the resources put into that offensive line, and you don't want to pull away from those now, in my opinion. So I can't quite see all of the fit there with Jordan here in Seattle. I think there's other teams that'll be more willing to want to probably jump on him, like passing offenses, for instance. Vimy, the Colts have a good O-line. People in the building have the Colts as top O-line for the past 10 years, despite everything else not working out. Yeah, they put the resources into it. Of course, Quentin Nelson is a monster, and I think I give him credit. They lost 2 linemen this offseason in their center and the right guard, and they've been able to replace those guys pretty fluidly. But they've done a good job of, it's really about resources. Do you put the resources into it? And there's multiple first-round picks put into that Colts offensive line, and it's no coincidence then that they're performing really well when you put the resources in. It's what I would offer. This is what the requirement is. You've got to put top end resources to get the best out. And if you put bottom end resources in, that's, what you're going to get back out of it as well. And boy, is it, jeez. Oh man, I swear every lineman I love goes to these other teams here in the last couple of years and they do well with these other teams. And I'm just like, bro, nobody could see these guys were going to be pretty good. Tanner Bortolini, one of your best movers at the position in the draft. He's the replacement at center. And then the Will Freeze, you got Matt Goncalves. I can't say his name, but I like him. A guy you could have had third round pick. Another guy I liked a couple of years ago quite a lot. But a third round pick on your right guard, fourth round pick on your center, first round pick on your left guard, first round pick on your left tackle, second round pick on your right tackle. It all comes down to the same thing over and over again, feed me. Same thing over and over again. We look through countless offensive lines through the recent years, and those lines that are really top end, they got the resources put into them. That's the common denominator. It's not, well, offensive line coach, they've got a Howard Mudd. They got this brilliant guy that just teaches them all the fine. They all put the resource into it. Yeah, they might have that too, but then they also put the resources into it to make sure it's maximized. It's not a one or the other. HHG, thank you for the 26 months as a Hawks Nest member. He says, we got to ask, is John Schneider willing to go after O-line? Begrudgingly, he slow rolled this thing a little bit, but I got to give him credit at least over the last 3.5 years. You've top 10 first round pick for Cross, third round pick for Abraham Lucas, third round pick for Christian Haynes, first round pick for Gray Zabel. That's in addition to having fourth round pick to Bradford, fifth round pick to Oluwatimi. I think that, while I would like to see him have him done more, I think what he has shown over the past couple of years is an improvement off of where it had been the past 7 years. Because I think if you take the last 7 years, like if you take these last 3 years from the Lucas Cross draft and how much assets he's put on this time period, and then you look at the last 5 years prior to that period, you would see that there's been a stark improvement in the amount of resources going into the line specifically. Could still stand to have some more added, but it is an improvement. It is moving in the right direction. Nick says Linderbaum for a second. It's going to cost you more than that, unfortunately, Nick. And that's even with having to give him a contract extension very soon. He's a former first-round pick. They probably would like to, with it all said and done, sign him to a contract extension. So what you're going to probably need to do is a bit of a blow them out of the water kind of offer to get them to jump. And I think that that's more like a first and a third is what it would probably take on that one, Nick. Antoine Cobb, how you doing, man? Shout out to Hawks Nest. I'm glad to have caught another show. Do you have any college running back that you would like to see the Seahawks draft? How about Jonah Coleman from Washington? Coleman's tough. He's a little tank in there. He's got some David Montgomery kind of elements to him. I don't think he's quite as good as a David Montgomery. I have been, admittedly, Antoine, a little bit behind, and I did this on purpose a bit this year because it's kind of been my opinion a little bit that the Hawk fans are not always as really, really connected, and more in mass, I would say, on this, to the draft process. And that it's kind of a slow one they kind of come around on too. And so I would always, in recent years, I've done a lot of legwork in season and stuff kind of on it and kind of it just sort of for not, so to speak. So I put more of the concentration on just the content creation stuff and getting stuff that's just staying on that because the finite amount of time, you got on a daily basis. I am about due to start to need to unpack these prospects and get into the 22 on these guys and take a little bit of a closer look. But I would have to admit that I've not done really any real deep dives quite yet on that. But for that reason, as much as anything, just because the finite amount of space and trying to make sure I'm striking while the iron's hot and pumping the content out at the right time, all that good stuff, so to speak. But Jonah's fun, really tough back. He is a grinder. He should be at the very least a good short yardage back at the next level. I don't know if he'll be a highly drafted running back. I think probably more of your third roundish kind of guy he strikes me as, but don't hold me to this as well, Antoine, because I do need to do my deep dive on him as well and, get a good number of couple of games where I really got a good view of him. And, but I tend to wait on the college season. I don't do a lot of watching the live college games just because I like watching the 22 number one in retrospect and I can get through the games that much faster. Just, it's all about efficiency, What makes the most efficient to get through the most. Nobody's jumped out yet that I've heard about. Travel, nature fanatic. The only thing that matters is snap counts together for offensive line in the NFL. Don't upset the apple cart. We need to finish the season intact. No changes. It's possibly the way that they do go. I think I would be up with you on the don't upset the apple cart if I thought the apple cart was rolling well. But I don't know that the apple cart's just rolling purely well. So that's, I guess, especially with Bradford at kind of the center of that. But there may not be a move to make as well. That's the other part of this too, Travel Fanatic, is even these two names we mentioned, Inteller or Zyler or anybody else, maybe there's just nobody out there available as it does stand. Joe Alt was back in that game. That does make a big difference. I always thought he was out for a couple weeks. Man, he's tough coming back that fast off the injury. Brent, thank you for the $2 donation. Could you do a Beavis and Butthead watching JSN score? Beavis. Jackson is good. He's a round ninja. Round ninja. Round ninja. Yeah, dude. He catches good. He's got hands.
Yeah, good hands. Yeah, he gets it with the hands.
I bet he jumps a lot. my butthead's struggling. Beavis is pretty good though right now.
I like him. Jackson, yeah. Throw it to him in the end zone. Get it to him. Get it to him good. He is Cornholio.
He's really fast. He can't cover him. Daniel Bailey, how excited are you about Emanwari and how he's playing so far? Are you planning to do any Emanwari tape study this year? Yeah, I will. I'll get around to it, I suppose, on some point or another with that. He's been, I think, pretty sensational to my eyes. And I was a guy that was very reticent to believe that when we drafted him that he could be what Kyle Hamilton was, just because Kyle's got a level of instincts and natural acumen for playing football that sometimes feels somewhat God-given. I don't know if it's purely just he's got that just kind of he's just a football player. But then I am seeing that now in Emanwari so very clearly, and it's been very, very strange to see him and not feel that I'm just seeing some echoes of Hamilton's game and what he's doing out there. But the drop that he had in this game where he starts at the line of scrimmage, feels the quarterback's eyes, drops back into space, no hesitation, playing with decisiveness. That's just a play that I don't think a lot of guys make. And it shows, the quickness, speed he's got, the length to be able to bring that long arm in there and to get that ball, to be able to dislodge that ball from there. But I think the thing that stands out to me and that you got to consider with him is that from day one of this guy getting onto a football field, and I'm talking about training camp, he's been impactful. And that there was not another defender on the field in my few days of watching training camp this preseason that was more impactful than Nick Emanwari. I think he's got star upside. I think he's going to be that guy. And everything he's shown on the field so far has definitely been that. Oh, that's right. Addison was in the first round. I thought he was, Phoebe. So they're going to want a pretty good return back. Nick says all Haynes needs to prove is that he isn't the literal second worst right guard in all of football. Not exactly big shoes to fill. That's where I've gotten. The baseline has been set so low. Yeah. So low. Hornfellas, I liked when Sato Lamea flashed when he started for us. Not sure what happened to him in regards to the depth chart because he ended that year above all those guys. Yeah, I kind of got there because of the front side guys failed just so badly. It's a little bit of the thinking that we have in place here, Hornfellas, with Bradford on it's the baseline last year, much like this year, was just incredibly low. So a guy coming in and even having a marginal part of his game that was decent helped him. With Sato, the big issue is that he can't pass protect and that it didn't come forward in training camp this year. And that as bad as Bradford is in pass protection with Lumet, it's even worse. And that ends up kind of being the thing I think that's going to probably knock Sato off his path of ever probably becoming a starting lineman in this league. He can run block at an NFL level, but the pass pro is just too far gone. Devin Palmatier. I have no faith in the Seahawks draft no lineman. I mean, I think that when they've done the drafting of the high guys, Devin, in recent years, they've done a good job. I mean, Lucas and Cross are I think, pretty good home runs. I would say. And then Zabel looks like a guy that's going to be a good starter here for the future. You know, it's just really about John putting the high draft capital into it or not. When he tries to go more 4th, 5th round range, it doesn't seem like he really finds the returns there like some other teams can. Niners got Connor Colby playing, starting for them at left guard right now. He's doing all right. It's not great, but he's just having a 7th rounder starting at left guard in itself is impressive. Brian says, once Haynes is healthy, he may be the answer. I hope so. Nick says, the O-line isn't fixed. We just now have one above average player on the inside to combine with our good to great tackles. Yeah, that's accurate. Dogzilla, I'm with you, Brandon, about next year being the better opportunity for us. I think it's the right time for to strike there a little bit more. So as far as especially aggressiveness goes, I would say Dogzilla. And that's part of where we come down to if we just want to let this thing stand and let it sort of kind of cook, let this thing just do the slow roast, get it out there in that smoker. I'm okay with that on this. I can understand going kind of both ways from John's perspective with all the money he's got that he does have sitting in cap space right now. And that he feels like, hey, I can get this guy, that guy, and I like doing that. But I also could be that guy that goes, hey, be patient, roll the cap over, and then lock and load this thing up in 26 heavy. But I'm not even torn. I can kind of go either way and be all right with it. Nick says, doesn't hurt to see what JPJ or Linderbaum would cost. Same can be said for Zeitler. I think you got to see, kick the tires a little bit here, John, to your point, Nick. And with Linderbaum, that'd be a guy that as we look at the center draft coming up right now, it's not looking like the strongest of drafts for centers. Sundell doesn't necessarily, I'm down to give Sundell more time, but a guy in Linderbaum would be a tremendous upgrade at the position. And if you have an opportunity to upgrade either the right guard or center position at this point, I think that there's a lot to be said for doing that if you have the possibility of being able to pull it off. Cadlis Zeidler is 35. He is older than dirt. He was with Moses when he parted the seas. Nick says Zeidler isn't the second worst right guard in football and is on a 1-year deal. That's my whole thinking. Yeah, me too. Would cost us next to nothing. I think it's a day 3 pick, Nick. So a day 3 pick for Zeidler. I mean, I think Zeidler is, if I'm not mistaken, like a top 20 rated guard in the sport right now. On a bad Titans team. Brian says, part of the problem, of course, is college teams aren't developing the right guards because they're always running spread formations, and if they run, it's all wide zone. Yeah. It causes a lot of talent evaluators to sort of throw up their hands and just sort of turn it into a throw it at a wall and sees what sticks when it comes to drafting guys versus it being more of a science-like approach to other positions, I think. We'll see if maybe, Brian, some of the change towards more of the run-heavy approach in the NFL starts to cascade maybe down to a little bit of the college level. But, of course, too, some of what drives the spread concepts at the college level is those wide hash marks, which you don't get at the NFL. Catalyst Zeidler for a 5th. Is that even too cheap? I think it's in play. What are they going to hope to get for a guy 35 that you get for a half season play? I mean, you're not, he doesn't have a second year on that contract. So to me, he's going to retire after this year. I would think the Titans could get that much for him. Renard says Jaden Roberts. That'd be a possibility. Nick says, I like the Wisner guy from Texas. He has some juice. Outside of Love, it's really wide open for all the other running backs. I got to look in. I got to do my dive. I'll start to do this weekend, you guys, and especially the bye week, get a little bit more of the, start doing some draft assessments, getting some stuff put together there. Pedro, I don't think we'll trade for anyone. We have only our original 6 picks for next year's draft, guys. Maybe not. Could see John standing pat. Justice Haynes might be the best running backs, Brian. Check him out. I don't think any Alabama O-linemen are worth drafting where we are. Don't trust them. They're supposed to dominate, and they just don't at times. That's fair. There's a mixed history with offensive linemen coming out of Alabama in recent years. Dogzilla, how is Genty doing? I mean, he's doing all right. I mean, I don't think he's doing anything bad for reading holes or not, being a potentially a very dynamic back in this league. It's just that offense is a complete mess. This is Martin Sundell is, Catalyst, Emanwari seems more athletic than Hamilton, but it's not like Hamilton's getting bereft from the rest of his declining defense. Benefit from the rest of his declining defense. Yeah, that's where with Nick, it gets you really excited because with Hamilton, of course, why did Hamilton not go, despite the tape showing he was deserving of going like top 7, ends up going, I think, like top 12-ish or something, maybe even 15 in that draft. And it was because he ran a 4.65 40. What do we know about what the 40-time Emanwari drafted? So with Hamilton, it is the instincts. It is the athleticism for his size that allows him to kind of play at the speed he plays at. But Emanwari has a completely another gear from explosiveness to speed to even, I think, a bigger, longer version of what you get with Hamilton. So there could be even more, which is the scary part, more upside in what you have with Emanwari on that note of things. Nick says Emanwari is like Cam, could move around like Eric Berry. Yeah, exactly. He's got a special skill set and he's got that. He has that seemingly dog to him in his game. He has that I'll get after it kind of spirit to him. Nick says, man, that Chris Bell wide receiver from Louisville just seems like the perfect number 2 behind JSN. That's where I see more than going out and getting an Olave or going out there and getting one of these or an Addison. To me, more of the move will be down the road of maybe you just draft a receiver higher into this next draft. Because then at least, yeah, you're putting some capital into it, but then the cost is down pretty low. And you're now doing a better job of managing positional cost. Goombas says, I'm not a mathematician, but I think 20 is a lot better than 80th. Yes, sir. I'm not good at math either, but I can do that. That's straightforward stuff. Patrick says, I don't worry much about the trade rumors right now. That will all light up on deadline. True. Brian Myers, Jermaine Johnson, thoughts? So admittedly, I wasn't the biggest guy in Jermaine Johnson coming out. I kind of raw a little bit, definitely has some really cool size to him. A lot of ways he's got almost kind of a similar kind of build to him like a Derek Hall a little bit. He's been a pretty good player for them. He's been all right. I think last year he was injured a bit. This year he's been decent. He had kind of his 23, which was kind of his quasi breakout where he was good in every aspect, from how he defended the run to how he rushed the passer. He had 40 hurries that year, 9 sacks, but only 1 sack this year, a little quiet. A former first-round pick. I don't think he's got the... So he's a former first-round pick that's going to carry a $13.4 million contract next year on the 5th year of his deal because they activated the 5th year option on him. So do you feel good about giving him $15 million a year with where he's been with the injury last year, robbing almost all of his season, only about a sack this year? Is that the bet? There's a math you've got to do on this, I guess, is what I'm saying. Where, is it the Jets depressing his production, or is it that this guy's just kind of what he is? I do fall back in line to not having, because Jets are just one of those teams because they've been so bad, just don't watch a lot of their tape. I got to admit that it just wasn't a guy I was really big on coming out of the draft. I didn't think I even had a first round grade on him. I could see you could see the upside that was there with him, but it all felt like it was all a ways away. It felt like you're gonna have to do a lot of hard work, kind of like one of those guys, Brian, who you invest in on that first round contract, you get him through the 4 years of the deal, and then you come to find that he starts to really light it up into year 5, 6 or something, because it's like he's finally figured stuff out. And I don't like that, having him on for a guaranteed $15 million deal next year. Now, I know you are losing Boye, so that would give you your Boye replacement in-house then. But I don't know. He's definitely a bigger edge. You know, Brian. Mike would like that part. Nick's, I think that, to me, Brian, I think that's the Niner move to me. So if I'm the Niners here, it's like, I'm going out and making this move because I'm going to need to find another edge anyway outside of Bosa after this year. So you're not minding the $14 million from their perspective. And then I'd go make the DeMario Davis move on the Niners. Like, because Jermaine Johnson's got familiarity with Saleh. Saleh knows him. Saleh scouted him. Saleh wanted him. So you bring Johnson in there and help out your edge group, and then you bring in a DeMario Davis for your middle linebacker. That makes the Niners, much scarier than they are right now. And then what is the cost for that? You give up maybe a 3rd round pick for Jermaine Johnson and maybe a 5th round pick for DeMario Davis. Nick says the draft is pretty ideal for us. Most of the tackles look like guards. Tons of big defensive tackles, good linebackers, wide receivers pretty loaded. Like it, man. That definitely sets up well for us. Balanced draft would be nice. Oxapu, how do you feel about Devin Witherspoon's long-term durability in this league? I think it's going to be okay. I don't think he's missed a tremendous amount of games. And, the worry has been with him a little bit of for being a guy that wants to hit and do all that stuff. Is he going to be able to sustain that? And that's been a bit of the question. I think that you have right now a knee injury more than anything else, which is causing him issues. So it's not really about the physicality aspect and not being held up there. It's just knee stuff comes up for certain guys. He played 14 games in his first year, and he played 17 games last year, and he's missed a couple games this year. So I think he's okay there, Oxapu, on that part of it. It's something to maybe monitor a little bit, but I don't think that that's a tremendous amount of, if he plays the rest of the games this year and he's essentially, then missed 8 games in 3 years, I don't think that's like, it's not that far off of, I think, what you'd get from a general norm to a degree. Rare. I think it's pretty rare these guys are just playing all 17 games every year. And the teams are going to be pretty careful with these guys with the injury front of things too, because of how many extra games they are playing. But I do think a little bit, and I start to wonder a little bit about Devin in that he's going to come back to the outside corner position now. And more than I worry about the long-term durability, I do wonder about the possibility of, if he doesn't quite really take to outside corner, if the team would look, and not to where he's bad at outside corner, but just not dominant at outside corner, if there wouldn't be a thought that he could be a true star safety if you were to move him to more of a safety position. But that's probably a conversation for another time. Got to see what he can do outside corner first. Jeffrey A. Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. Jeffrey, trade Sam and 2 firsts for Joe Burrow. Trade 2nd and 1 defensive end for Max Crosby. Trade 2 thirds and Walker for Trey Hendrickson. All in, baby. Oh, geez, Jeffrey. Jeffrey went wild with it, man. Jeffrey went buck wild with it. Crosby and Hendrickson, huh? Yeah, I have a feeling you're going to have to give up a little bit more than that for Max, my man. I don't think Boye Mafe in a 2nd round pick or Derek Hall in a 2nd round pick is going to get you Max Crosby. So the math might not totally math there, but I'm happy with Sam right now. I'm a little bit worried with Joe. As much as I love Joe, I mean, there's a couple years now where the lower leg injury stuff has come up quite a bit, and you start to worry about the hammering he's undertaken and that how much he's been beat up out there in Cincinnati. So, I might just be standing pat with Sam right now. But Jeffrey, you want to go all in on Max? Sign me up, man. You're giving up 2 firsts plus. You're giving up at least 2 firsts and a 2nd for Max Crosby right now. So you're gonna have to up your ante there just a little itty bitty bit. Good to see you in the house, Jeffrey. Thank you, man. Catalyst going to the Cards game at home. Should be a good game to go check out. I'd be enjoying playing Battlefield. I haven't quite got it yet. I've been thinking about it, but I haven't quite jumped yet, HHG. I probably will here soon, but I just don't know if I've seen enough there with it that really brings me in for anything that's like new to it. Seems kind of sniper heavy too. Nick says, am I crazy for saying right here, right now I'd rather have Sam purely based off the health. I mean, I'm kind of finding myself sort of saying the same thing here a little bit. Like, I don't think I would have saw myself saying this at the start of the year when it came to a Burrow situation, but I kind of find myself leaning here. And let's, remember bringing Burrow, you're going to still have some of the costs there with him that he's going to be still, I think, even more expensive than, with the bonus money off, still more expensive than Sam, which is a bit of the process there too. But, Darnold's pretty healthy and hasn't been, run out there and just drug for a couple of years behind his offensive line like they've done with Burrow there in Cincinnati from day one. That's a bit of a factor, man. Those blows add up. I don't think it's any coincidence that he's sustaining some of these injuries. HSG, the sniping is the only really big maps, B. That's fair. It's like, but that's really what I want to play it is in the big map aspect of it. Like that's to me the whole Battlefield point is it should be all, that's where I want to be is the big maps. I want to do the Call of Duty small maps. I'll just go play Call of Duty. That's where I want to do that, Levi, I live in San Diego right now. I'm going to the game in SoFi, hoping that's the one we take one from the Rams. Who's timeshare? Get it, man. Hopefully we can. Nick says, Emanwari in the slot, Spoon at free safety. Well, and you're going to try to make Spoon work on the outside first and foremost with this. So I don't think that this is a transition that's going to happen now. I do think about this as far as after this year when Kobe Bryant moves in free agency. And let's say that Spoon goes out there and he plays solid at outside corner. Okay. Not bad, but he's solid, right? Decently graded, but he's not like considered a top end outside corner necessarily, just solid. Does that drive, if the coaching staff sees star potential for him out at safety, would you as a coaching staff at that point feel a little bit of a draw to move that guy into that other position? And I would think there'd be, remembering with Spoon when he was drafted, there was a lot of people that felt like safety would be his final destination, final landing place. Catalyst, I wouldn't move Love and Bryant from their safety spots. I would push Spoon to boundary corner. He played there in college too. Yeah, this is more of, again, just after this year. Kobe goes in free agency, probably not re-signing him. You've got an opening at strong safety. You're loving what Nick Emanwari is doing from the slot. Spoon's solid at outside corner, but not like lighting the world on fire. Does the coaching staff see that change to where, hey, he could be maximally impactful back there? He can be a Xavier McKinney type guy from a coverage standpoint back there, but also give us really plus ability as a run defender coming up. In addition to that, I don't know that I'm not saying I have this opinion that he can do that, by the way. I'm just wondering if this is not something that's a little bit in the coach's mind right now, as we still don't quite know Witherspoon's fit as an outside corner at the pro level and how comfortable and good he'll be out there. He's been rocking the slot from basically day one in this defense. And so there's a little bit of and I can show you some snaps over the last couple of years too, where he has played on the outside and he has gotten beat on the outside. So I'm just wondering it as much as anything else. Braden says, if we can fix our run game, I kind of feel like Sam has another level. Not going to lie. I think you're onto something there, Braden. Reason being is that the more stuff a quarterback has working in his favor, the better that quarterback will be in general terms. And part of Sam's success and what's been so cool about Sam's success is that I don't think that you have particularly, I know you haven't run the ball consistently. And then when it comes to pass protection, I think that sometimes is hit or miss game by game. And I think a lot of it gets mitigated by Sam's quick decision-making and getting the ball out of his hands. But once you get him a running game, once teams now have to really just pay attention to that, and I don't think they're really paying attention as much as our passing game with the stacked boxes and blitzes, but once you're able to do that, you can kind of pick your poison on how you want to take teams down, and there's not a lot they can do about it, especially if you can catch them leaning one direction or another. Really was cool a couple weeks ago when we had the Jacksonville game where there was so much flexibility given to Sam to be able to come up there and change to the right play based on the fronts he was seeing. And that's where you can really get to on this. So you can get the light box, I'll go to the run. I get that stack box, we're going to the pass, especially if I can isolate JSN one-on-one on the outside. Nick says, wonder if Sam will want an extension this offseason. I hope not. We can keep stacking the roster. He can want it, he's not getting it. And I would estimate that John had this conversation with the agent when they made this signing, and that the agent's probably already well aware of this. Seattle has a policy that they do not negotiate with 2 years left on the deal, especially if it's a guy like this, where you just signed him to a free agent contract. So 2 years left on the deal means he's going to have to wait another year to be looking at that. And Sam doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to try to push that envelope in that way. Michael Bicknell, thank you for the $5 donation. Jesse's reason for hating Seahawks fans was so dumb. Called us a bandwagon fan base, which the lore of the kingdom, I think, disproves that alone. Shaking my head. Jesse's been on one here the last couple of weeks with his hate for the Seahawks. I don't know if it's the fact that he recognizes the threat that we are becoming and that makes him angry in his heart. I don't know. He's been a little feisty in the roundtable lately in this regard of things. And the bandwagon thing to me is such silly, dumb stuff. And it's such a lazy thing to try to throw out there at Seahawks fans. It really is. And the kingdom does disprove that. So, it's a little bit of one where I think as anything in some of this stuff, he's just trying to like maybe trigger me as much. And he thinks he's going to trigger me by trying to say that type of stuff. But I don't take it seriously. It's just kind of just lazy critique of the fandom. Like, who looks at Seahawks fans and be like, yeah, you guys don't do enough. Yeah, you're a fan base that doesn't can support your team at every pass. Like, yeah, that's our reputation. Yeah, that's who we are, And if we were bandwagon fans, well then why have we all been riding or dying with this team for the past 10 years when you haven't won jack diddly squat? Shouldn't we have all bailed basically after 2016 when we've had cumulatively like 2 playoff wins over that time period? So should that, if we're bandwagoners, shouldn't we have all bailed then at that point? It's just, it's silly. And I don't get where, I don't get where he's really coming with it. It's kind of like, again, it's just, it's the most kind of laziest of critique there. And again, it's always one that just doesn't, to me, based on what? Because they weren't on the TV or something from his standpoint or something, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes with Jesse, it's like he uses one point of data and then draws all of his conclusions off sort of one point of data in his mind and doesn't want to take into extra stuff into account. And just becomes this. It's like, dude, there's more stuff than just this simple to take into account for having to take. But you can't change people's thinking, I can try to make points and you can't change the way people think on things. Thank you, though, Michael. I agree with you 100% on that one. Don't support rats. Sam signed a 3-year contract. We don't have to worry about that new contract till 2027, 3 years, $100 million. Yeah, I think definitely you're right, 100%. So as we get into the new season in 2027, he keeps performing like this, then you will, with a year left, give him the extension. But 100% you're on the button right that. Not going to be doing an extension after this year. He's locked in on a very value-based contract at that. Phoebe says, why would Spoon take the pay cut, though? Because of the fact that he hasn't solidified enough of his value as an outside corner to hope that he can go get the contract of like a J.C. Horn at $25 million a year. So, if he's facing down anyway, Phoebe Moore Seahawks, the potential of being $13 million a year outside corner, and he can still go be a $13 million a year safety. And you can sell him on the fact that he's going to be more impactful going to that safety position. I think you can potentially sell him on that, or as well. And part of this is the evaluation we run through the rest of the season on this Feed Me. It's not about necessarily exactly where I know Spoon's at right now. It's more of, okay, I'm going to get his longest run as an outside corner to make an evaluation about where he is as an outside corner. Not about what we hoped he would be when we drafted him. Not about what he was at Illinois, but what he is right now as an outside corner. And if he happens to be kind of slightly above middle of the road, or dare I even say maybe a little bit average, then maybe it's not as tough of a sales job to Spoon after this year to say, let's make this transition to where you can be more impactful here. So I don't think he's necessarily put the hay in the barn as far as earning some big monster contract at this point. He's a very good player, and I think plenty of teams will be lining up for his services, but not to pay him up in the $20 million a year range quite yet. This is, I think you can move your guys around Spoon, takes most of his snaps in the slot, but can play boundary depending on the situation. He's going to outside now, Lethal. So I know that he's been in the slot up until this point, but the slot days are going to be probably by and large, for the most part, done. It's going to be Nick Emanwari in there in the slot. It's going to be Spoon on the outside. When you're in base situations, Spoon will, then Emanwari probably comes off the field, and it'll be, Woolen on one side, Witherspoon on the other one. But this is also, Lethal, what they were running out at training camp too. So this was always the plan that was in place. Yeah, Seahawks fans have never been bandwagon fans. And again, just it's so easily disproven from the fact that instantaneously being an expansion franchise, this fandom jumped on board. You packed the Kingdome. I'm old enough to have been alive in the Kingdome, to have been able to say with my own eyes, look around, and I can look around in that Kingdome, and it's stacked with nothing but Hawk fans, and your team wasn't particularly good. I went to so many of those games. So if we're bandwagon, it's like, well, were we not bandwagon from 82 to 88, 90? You know, did we just become bandwagon from 90 to 96? You know, part of what Jesse doesn't understand, and again, part of why he's not particularly curious, and this is the part that I take heed with it, where it's like your lack of curiosity caused you to have the laziest of takes. Like if you understood and studied what was going on with the Seahawks that time and knew what was going on with Ken Behring. And here's the thing is that I can do this on the other side. And this is, I get into this thing with Jake too at times with these guys that are like a little bit younger than me. And they sort of came along at this point, and their whole NFL understanding is this point and onwards. And everything that came behind this point just sort of didn't exist. And they don't need to be made aware of it. It's not really on them to have to really go understand it or study or, you know, keep in mind any of that stuff. Which, okay, fine, then don't have strong opinions about it, right? I'm okay if you don't want to go look into it or study it up, but Ken Behring was actively into that late 80s, early 90s trying to get the fan base off this team so he could move the team. He's trying to Clay Bennett the situation. The same playbook Clay Bennett used like 15 years later for the Sonics. And it didn't work, but that had a lot to do with what was going on with the team as Jesse's coming along into his understanding of football, but doesn't take any of that into account. Now, I can sit there to Jesse and I can give Jesse a full breakdown on Eddie DeBartolo and what he did as an owner. And I'm talking on the good side of things and how he drove that program and all of those things. I know about the Niners. I can speak to their history at that time. He can't. And I wish from that standpoint, then just shut the hell up about it. You know, keep your mouth. If you don't know what you're talking about, then shut up. Or if you're not interested in, you're not curious about it, then shut up. If you got a curiosity and you actually have done your research and you know what you're speaking on, then certainly we can have our differing opinions. But if you're just basing it on, and it's a lot of just, I'm just gonna feel it's this way, so it's that way. So just kind of feel it. It's like that. Jeffrey, thank you for the $2 donation. The heavy boxes show lack of respect for Sam. Complete lack of respect, 100%. And I'd go as far as to say it's disrespectful when it's up at this level. You're getting stacked at the highest rate than anybody in the NFL. It is those teams telling you that we don't think you can beat us down the field throwing the ball. The weird part for me, Jeffrey, is that he's done it in every single game, and yet teams just continue to take out the same strat every single week. Very, very weird. Nick says, I was around for the Charlie Whitehurst days, living in upstate New York in the middle school. I resent the word bandwagon. Yeah, I do too. It absolutely is one that just, there's plenty of fan bases out there that you can throw that around. This is one of the ones where you're out of pocket completely if that's what you're trying to do. Don't Sport Rats says 50 years and one Super Bowl for me as a fan. Watched the first game on the couch with my grandpa. Amen. Braden says the bandwagon left with Russ. Brian says, well, Jesse hates the Hawks generally, so he feels free to S on their fans too. I guess so. Yeah. Which I understand the hate for the team, but I don't understand the hate for the fandom. But he's been feeling away the past couple weeks. Don't support Rats. Having 7 to 8 games locked into no state income tax is a sales pitch that is very effective. I would think so, yeah. We do have a little bit of a higher sales tax here to kind of offset some of that, but less of the government directly taking it right out of your pocket. Sean, if you get Zeitler, how long do you wait to play him? He's going to have some acclimation time, right? Yeah, I would give him as much time as he kind of needed because obviously I think you can get by at the position. I think Bradford, as bad as he's played, you can get by. It's not you're dealing from strength and you're making stuff happen. You are just kind of holding on for dear life, but you know you can do at least that. So you give Zeitler the proper time. Give him a couple weeks to kind of get in the flow of things. You know, let his body as an older player who's already played through the first half of the year maybe get a little bit of a tiny rest in that point of learning the team and what's going on. I can't say for sure because I don't think that the Lions ran this offense. I don't think the Titans run this offense, but I would think too, as Zeitler somewhere, he's probably run through some of the stuff and some of the techniques that we utilize so that versus a younger player, he'll be able to come along a little bit faster. Mungles, thank you for the $5 donation. Mungles, I love Sam's ability to bounce back. He has the strip sack in the end zone and then started dotting up JSN right after. Go Hawks. Indeed he did. And indeed he has shown that. We saw this also in the Steeler game, right? Where there was 2 interceptions fairly early on in that game, which really easily could have made a quarterback kind of climb into their shell and go, okay, I'm just going to need to be hyper careful with this defense. 2 mistakes is already too many on the day. I got to be careful. And instead of Sam's case, he kept letting it rip. And I think that this is the benefit of having a guy that's been in this sport for so many years and that he knows how to deal with adversity at this point. And that is maybe as much as anything for a young quarterback. The thing that they really do struggle with is adversity is a coming and there's nothing you can do about it. How do you respond to it? How do you bounce back up? And it's easy to just say, shake it off, move to the next play. I think it's harder to do so at times in this sport. And especially so many emotions that ride so hot and high during every football game. But he indeed has bounced back really well anytime that he's hit a bump in the road. There have been many bumps in the road, but he's done a really good job of just coming right back at it, keep swinging, keep going, keep trusting, your ability to get the job done. And he's doing it. Braden says, plus Spoon loves playing in the box. He does. That's where I think a little bit of the safety thing could lend well to him as well, because he gives you all that coverage ability you wouldn't typically get from a strong safety, but then he's able to give you everything that you would hope you could get from a strong safety as far as coming down there and being a tackler in space and being violent and being physical. And I this is where when Spoon was initially drafted, I found myself saying, well, there's no way I want to move that guy, taking him 5 overall to the safety position. Hell to the no. But I find myself a little more open to it, knowing now that the slot's kind of off the board. And I don't know quite what I'll see from an outside corner. And this is somewhat informed a bit from the all 22 shots I have in my mind, kind of replaying as I'm talking to you guys on this, of having some snaps where I see him on the outside corner position and he's kind of getting taken apart a little bit, where receivers are getting after him a little bit when he's out there on that outside. And now some of that could be that he's been playing so much slot that when you put him to the outside, he's a little bit of a fish out of water. Once you get him more, now he's playing this consistently outside all the time, he'll get better at it. That's the part where I said, I'm not drawing conclusions on this. I'm just wondering a little bit on that one of how it might go. Josh Jobe, Catalyst, is indeed a free agent after this year. Yes. Lethal says, well, I believe Spoon can hold up out there. He has talent, mindset, and intensity to find success out there. I believe so too as well. He'll be a success. There's no doubt to me on that. Where it lands or how it lands, I know he's too good of a player for it not. Dogzilla with Sam, the good far outweighs the bad. You better believe it does. Michael B, is it purely salary cap reasons for moving off of Kobe Bryant, or is it performance based? I feel like he's solid back there with Love, and he is good at coming up and laying hits on the run. Yeah, I think it's just about that load balance thing for the salary cap and positional load balance as far as salary cap goes and how you dispense. And so it's a little bit like, an extension of the wide receiver discussion we were having earlier, Michael, where does it make sense to have 70 million, 75 million into your wide receiver position if you're going to be defensively run and run first and a balanced offense? Probably not. When it comes to your defense, the thing that we learned, and this was a very hard lesson we had to learn, Michael, this cost us quite a bit to learn this lesson, and that is that no team in the NFL is out there paying both of their safeties top of the market money at the same time. Nobody's doing it. And so if you're going to pay Kobe Bryant, you're going to be a lot closer to top of the market than you're going to be to middle of the road market on a new contract for him, especially if he goes out there and let's say gets another 2 or 3 interceptions before the end of the year, ends out at 5 picks, looks like a ball hawk of what he's brought the last couple of years from that transition to the safety position. So he's up in that upper crust, probably $12 to $13 million per year kind of salary that he's pulling in. So you learned with Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, when you paid those guys top of the bop, that you didn't get the returns back for paying those guys. Now, these are 2 different players that you have in the here and the now, but Julian Love is about to have his cap costs go up very high here into next year. It's going to be significant. And, so I would say that recent history has taught you NFL teams don't do this. No one's doing it. You tried to do it outside the box a couple of years ago, and it fell flat on its face. And remembering that when you put that money to this position, when you itemize out and say $13 million to Kobe Bryant, we think he's worth it. It's not really then just about you thinking it's worth it. It's also you then pulling that $13 million from another position that you could have more weightily put into, which could have had more impact. Is this defense driven by the safeties, or is this defense driven by the front seven? If I had to pick one or the other, you know what I mean, on that one, Michael, and I would say more to the front seven myself. So I would say, look, I can afford to pay one safety high money. Maybe I can afford to pay that other safety, but he's got to be a star, not merely kind of good for the position then, if I'm going to go that. And I got to be able to demonstrably show that the impact's going to be felt there and paying these guys that amount of money because nobody's doing it. So a bit of like the relation, Michael, back to the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals this offseason became really the first team to pay both of their receivers at that high water mark that they paid them. Nobody else is doing that. The Eagles kind of come close with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, but they've buried all of the void year deal money down the line with those guys. So it's not really tit for tat because they've got so much extended out on the credit card that it just doesn't make it a good comparison. So he's good, but I just think that it's all of those factors that kind of bear into this a little bit that end up having you come out the other side of it saying that $13 million can be better spent in other ways. You just don't want to pay those safeties the same place because I think the Bengals are showing you right now it's not good for them to be doing this outlier thing either. You're that one team doing it and 31 other teams are going, no, that's not a smart move. It's probably not a smart move. They're zigging when everyone's zagging and they're sort of going just a little bit too far outside of the scope of reality with things. And I think that finite cap really hits you with the safety position. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for another $5 donation, Jeffrey. The season ticket situation post Legion of Boom years in our stadium has provided us some very bad optics with other fan bases overrunning our stadium consistently. Yeah, I agree with that. I think, Jeffrey, though, that's again where we go, let's go context. Is this a problem or an issue that's happening in Seattle? Is this a problem and issue that's happening everywhere? I was just in the Los Angeles Rams stadium 3 weeks ago, and that whole stadium appeared to be full of San Francisco 49er fans. I think that this is the league-wide thing that's going on right now. You got a lot of people transplanting in a lot of different places more than ever before. Look at, Jeffrey, what we do now in Arizona. Every time the Arizona Cardinals play at home playing the Seattle Seahawks, it's a home game for the Seattle Seahawks. I feel like we have more fans in that stadium than Arizona. You know, these are just two teams within our division that I'm talking about, Jeffrey. I think this is absolutely a league-wide thing that you see. And there's certainly probably some places that do better about keeping the other fans out and take some more maybe firmer steps, or that, you know, is it as much a problem maybe in Buffalo? You know, maybe not. Is there as many transplants in Buffalo? You know, like, Jeffrey, we've got a lot of probably San Francisco, LA transplants here. Are there a lot of, you know, is a lot of Seattle transplants in Buffalo? If Seattle plays in a Buffalo, probably not. Not a lot of people going from Seattle to Buffalo. So you're right in that it's probably maybe considered a little bit of that, but I just don't think it's really been an only us thing here. This is more to me of the automatic ticket stuff being bought, the bots buying the tickets, the resellers out there on the market that have turned this into a whole financial thing to do this. And that's less about than the fandoms, but you're probably right in that they just probably look at that lazily and go, oh, their stadium gets taken over, so then it's bandwagon. But again, we just come back to this stuff drives me crazy because there's more depth to the answer of that than just, oh, fans don't want to show up thing. Braden Lackey, should we prematurely pick up Zach Wilson? He could be a superstar in a few years. Get ahead of this stuff, man, Braden. You know, I am onto it in this way of that. I'm much more in rearview mirror city as far as going and drafting some quarterback, and that's the way to go, and that's how you got to do it, and go maximize his rookie deal and blah, 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 blah. No. I'm all about the reclamation projects. I'm all about the guy that's been at a team that's been poorly run and multiple head coaches run through and bad offensive coordinators here and there and everywhere. Let me go target that one. You know? Nick Guzman, thank you for becoming a Hawks Nest Pro Bowler, man. Appreciate you jumping up as a Hawks Nest member. We'll be doing another call-in show here in a couple weeks for you guys. Keep an eye on your community post if you are a member of the channel. Alberto Sanchez. Hello, Brandon. Being honest, I am a Rams fan, but always enjoy your perspective on the NFC West roundtable. Question I have is, since acquiring Cooper Kupp, have you been pleased or are you disappointed in him? 1 second here. Well, first off, Alberto, I salute you, sir. I know watching a different, fan on that, being a fan of the Rams isn't always easy on that, and you checking out the channel is awesome. So I really appreciate that. I love doing my work on the roundtable. Those guys also do just such a great job at covering their teams, and it makes it a real fun, I think, interaction back and forth. As far as Cooper Kupp goes, right now, Alberto, Jackson Smith and Jigba is leading the NFL in the passing target share of the offense. So of all of our passing attempts of Sam Darnold, 44% of those passing attempts, almost half of Sam's passing attempts, are going to Jackson Smith and Jigba. And so what this has done is that first point of combination with the second point of combination being that we're one of the league, we're around, before this last week, Alberto, we were 20th in passing attempts. So you got one guy taking half of the target share, and then you're 20th in passing attempts. You're back third in just the pure number of attempts you're even trying to throw the ball because you're up in a lot of these games. You're playing with the lead. You're just trying to put teams away. You're not throwing very much. And so kind of what I'm saying with this, Alberto, is to my eyes, Cooper Kupp's been really good on tape. He's still getting open. Sam's hyper-targeting Jackson, and then you're just not throwing the ball very much. So I think with Cooper Kupp, what you will see is that eventually once teams start to finally own up to the fact that they need to double team Jackson Smith and Alberto, part of the reason you're seeing Jackson have the explosion he is right now is that, he is that good, but teams are just staying committed to trying to deal with him one-on-one. Last week, Texans thought Derek Stingley was going to be able to lock him up one-on-one. No safety help needed. That didn't work. So eventually teams will make this transition, and when they do, I will estimate, Alberto, that back probably fourth of the season, Cooper Kupp probably has his most productivity because he's actually getting those opportunities now. But he's getting open on tape, man, and he still looks really good. Hell of a blocker as well in the run game. Jimmy says most bandwagon fans are not smart. All I see is smart people in here. Amen, man. Leave the Lance Jesse mad that most 49er fans live in retirement homes. Don't support rats. Usually have 1 weak link on your O-line or you spend too much money. It can be that way. I will say to your point on the weak link, one of the measurements that the analytic folks will tell you about with offensive line play and when you have poor to good to great offensive line play is that an offensive line is not made up of the best of what it is, and that's the driving force. Oftentimes what makes an offensive line is the best of its weakest link. And if your weakest link is awful, it can sink the whole bloody ship. So it's hard to build a full total one up. Don't support rats, to your point. I think what you are trying to get to is though you'd love to have a dominant across the board. At the very least, you're able to bring that weak link up to a passable stage of things. And right now we just see with ours, it's not quite that way. Nick says, Brian. Laban B, who would you trade for between Jalen Waddle or Rashad Shaheed? Jalen Waddle is a better player, but he just costs you too much to go get him. Rashid Shaheed's going to be much cheaper, and he would foot the bill for what we potentially could need in the offense. I think just fine. Waddle's awesome. He's dynamic as hell, but Waddle's probably going to pull, if not a first-round pick, a second and a third-round pick back for the Dolphins, and I don't want to give that up for Waddle. No, sir. But Waddle's awesome, and I think there's definitely a case with Waddle to be said that the Dolphins haven't gotten the most out of him there in Miami, partly because of Tua's limitations as a passer. But Shaheed's very cheap. Last year of his contract cost you a day 3 pick versus the second, third you probably have to give up for Waddle. Jay Melfair, we're going to have to make some money decisions going forward. Rather spend the money on the line because the line is hard to replace. Amen, man. Find that amount of resources. Where do you want to put them? And I'm in the same boat. I love that they've given the contract extension to Lucas. You're going to sign Charles Cross here. I don't know if there'll be a free agent lineman worthy of being signed this offseason, but if there is, I want us to be ready to jump on that and put the resources to that if you can do it. Much better that than going and getting some rookie we got to go through the ups and downs with next year in a year where we're going to be looking to really, truly, fully be competitive and go for it. Daniel says Shaheed would be a strong acquisition. Yeah, I could see the intelligence behind it. I mean, you move any sort of day 3 pick. I'm not getting up in a bluster about that. You know, that's you're perfectly fine to me moving day 3 picks to the deadline, and that's okay. That's not going to cost you big down the line. Little Lance says, thank God we didn't pay DK. Imagine pay DK what Pittsburgh did. Now you have to pay JSN. It's where I just don't think the money would have been there to do that either. I don't think that you can have 2 guys at the receiver position taking up $75 million off the cap, and you're a run-heavy football team that plays defense. They just don't go together. It's like it's oil and water a little bit conceptually to me. But yeah, that's why we made that move of DK and why I supported it at the time, because you couldn't afford to pay both these 2 guys. And it just didn't. The math doesn't add up on it. You'd love to do it. We'd love to pay everybody. But the NFL is one where you have to make hard decisions. In fact, it's more of a sport than any other sport out there where you got to make the hard decisions, where you got to let guys go that you don't want to let go, because it's better for ultimately the grander story at play, for the team at play. And it's what makes this sport harder, what makes it so dynamic as hell, too. It helps when half the San Francisco fans are retired. Chat taking shots at Niner fans. I'm here for it. Braden, if Kobe Bryant does leave, do you think we would move Nick from nickel to safety and Spoon back to nickel, then drafting a corner? I think that the draw is more to potentially move Spoon to safety. I think that they're really going to like Nicky Manwari at slot, because what Nick brings is, and even over what you get with Witherspoon, because with Witherspoon at 5'11", I can go get a George Kittle matched up at 6'4", and I can maybe be able to just kind of outsize him at times. But with Nicky Manwari, you ain't going to outsize him. You're not going to put some grade A tight end that you think is going to run away from the slot or be taller than the slot they typically guard. So you're not going to have a mismatch there to be had. So that's a little bit of why I think that's going to be a driving force for him to just kind of remain in that position. And so first with Spoon, you try him on the outside, Braden. If it's not working with him on the outside, or it's kind of stilted, then you would try him to, I think, the safety position. But it's very much a fluid situation that I think it's open-ended right now. Nick says DK will always be one of my favorites, but he never fully achieved greatness like he should have. He should have been top 5 to 7 in his position year in, year out, just never was. It's not fully come on there for him. And yeah, I've got his jersey behind me. You know, I'm the same way in this a little bit. So I feel similarly there on that one. But yeah, still a very good player. Still a guy that's going to end up, end up with a career that's going to be incredibly productive. But you always will, I think, maybe have wondered with him a little bit if there was not another year there to be had. LeBron this year is the closest year to 2013 in terms of cap flexibility and Super Bowl run. True. No sport rats. I'm thankful for the years DK played here. I just as thankful to move on. Amen. Daniel says Jesse made it clear Beavis and Butthead are Niner fans. Martin, I like Sam. I think Sam will be happy enough to sit for 2 years before looking for an extension. He's settled into the environment that suits his playing style. He keeps his level. The deal gets done by 2027. Amen. I think it's going to absolutely play like that. And now, from Sam's standpoint, he's bounced around league so often. Does he want to go bounce around again? I think, as he said, he's found home. He's found the spot that believes in him. He's found the spot that, for the first time in his career, truly outside of the Jets, is committing to him. And to your point, committing to him in a great environment for him to find success. I think that he's at that part of his career where you take into some of this stuff into account in a major way. For a guy that's made some money, he's got the dollar bills in the bank at this point. And I think he'll be patient with it. I do. Nick, Cup can stay next year, but I would definitely draft a guy in the first 2 rounds. Horton, I hope but some games he just goes completely invisible. We'll see with Horton. It's early right now, and it's kind of hard to get a full evaluation on him and assessment, and partly for those reasons I was talking about of just you're not utilizing a lot of the passing offense all across the board here. But I think Cup will be here for a couple of years. I think he's a great addition. Alberto, yeah, JSN's having a great year. Definitely missed Cup, but unfortunately it's a business. Thanks for answering my question. And also, I know we're rivals, but our games are always close, but still respect. 49ers are a completely different story. That's true. You say less on that. You know where we stand on the Niners stuff too there, Alberto. And much respect to you too, man. I'll say I've got to say, and this is even for the Niner fans, and this is hard for me to say with this Alberto, but when I did this roundtable, I thought a lot of it was going to be then getting Rams, Niner fans into because obviously Cardinal fans don't care enough to come in, but we're going to get the Rams and the 49er fans coming in the chat to just sort of flame things up after the roundtables. It's been completely the opposite, Alberto. It's been really great, not just discussions between me and these folks coming in, but even within my own chat and kind of understanding what we're doing here and kind of the mode that we go by. And it's just as much about discussion and trying to turn over ideas. And it's not somebody trying to dunk on other people about I'm more right or I'm more right. It's more just, I like to think of it, as I said before many times, it's like I think of it like this as being kind of a think tank of ideas that can kind of revolve around and we come out of this all, more informed, more intelligent off the other end of it. And I've got to say that to a Ram fan, to a 49er fan, that they come in here, it's like we get so many good interactions and so many cool experiences with that. And that's what I want. And I like giving the boys on the round table a hard time and flaming them out a little bit on the team. But at the end of the day, I love the deep discussion. I love the different tactics and the different philosophies in place between these franchises. And as well, Alberto, you got to respect the fact that, Rams, 49ers in this division and how well they're run to maintain the level of consistent, good to great teams that they've been here recently. Appreciate you. Don't support Rat. What's a reasonable price for right guard now anyway? For a top-notch right guard? Depends on which guy we're talking, but I mean, if you're talking probably a real true, really, really good one, I mean, you might go as high as a late first-round pick. If you're talking about an older guy, that's where it gets a little bit different. But the tough part on this don't support Rats too is that teams just don't make these moves very often. Especially with the interior linemen. Just don't see a lot of top-end guards being moved. Steven, I remember when the Seahawks were AFC West playing against the Mighty Raiders twice a year. Been a fan for a long minute. Never called a bandwagon fan. Yeah, it's one that it doesn't land. It just don't land. And Alberto, you guys are going to be good this year. You're unfortunately for us, coming into shape well here. Bulbasaurus, hey, Brandon. Could you pull up that Bradford Sundahl failed screenplay? Laughing out loud, that play made me laugh in real time. I wish I had it up, but I can't bring it live. I got to edit my clips if I show clips on the channel, Bulbasaurus, before I go live, because if you don't do it a certain way, as far as how you frame the shot and all this stuff, like NFL grabs the live stream on that, which kind of sucks. BK, this team's offense will only get better almost halfway through the season with a new OC. Amen, BK. Love the optimism, and I agree. Nick, my thing with Kubiak isn't that I worry he can't scheme up plays. He's just too damn conservative. Yeah, and I think that's part where maybe like BK says above will improve with time a little bit on this as he gets more comfortable with the roster and what works and what doesn't work. The thing I remember with Kubiak too is that, he doesn't have like that 10, 15-year history of being an OC in the sport. He did it 1 year last year with the Saints, and he had like the 2-year cup of coffee with the Vikings. So still a guy that's definitely probably growing into that role. Jonas says, if we get a 2 or better for Woolen, yes. Yeah, of course. No one's offering us that though. But yeah, I mean, that'd be, how could you not, Jonas? Nick, also for the love of God, can we please just get some damn running room for K9? My God, he just never has any freaking space to do anything. Once he can get up full speed, good luck. Agreed, Nick. It's frustrating to watch because especially this is the 4th year of this that we're seeing with him. Just a struggle to open up any holes. But part of it too, Nick, is that stack box thing. Just so many bodies down by the line of scrimmage. Mayfield Kubiak, solid. Not perfect, but solid. 100 times better than Grubb. Amen. Amen to that, man. Jonas, I want A-Chain and Jordan Brooks back at will. Also would love to acquire Trey Hendrickson for a 4th. I don't think right now, Jonas, the Bengals are in sell mode. That win last week's going to probably propel them to feel like they can hang in here until Burrow gets back. I'm with you on A-Chain. I don't think the cost will be tremendous, and I can understand what he could add to this running back room. He's a threat out of the backfield. Guy's been real dynamic. He's got another year of club control, so you would have an answer there for if Walker leaves after this year. You've got somebody that you can input into his position. I struggle a little bit on the Jordan Brooks front of it. The coverage stuff there's 2 parts of this that are going to be troublesome for Jordan Brooks coming to this particular defense, Jonas. And part of the reason is the Seattle let him walk in the first place when they were bringing in Mike McDonald. Because I think that's the part that people that want Jordan Brooks back are kind of forgetting about this, is you had the opportunity to re-sign him at a very market-friendly deal in Seattle. And the team didn't want to do that. And Mike McDonald watched the tape on Jordan Brooks and saw the same thing I saw on Jordan Brooks, which is that my defense is going to require a will linebacker to cover. This is why Drake Thomas, for instance, is your starting linebacker over Tyrese Knight. The other thing that his defense is going to require a will linebacker to do, like he requires a Mike linebacker to do, is to get off second-level climbers. I'm not going to have a front four that's going to keep you clean as far as your ability to just run wild and free back there sideline to sideline and go make tackles. You're going to have to dispense and remove a blocker off your front and then go make the tackle. These are two big parts of Jordan Brooks' game that cannot be undersold, are problematic, and would not fit to this defense. You're not alone, Jonas, in that there's a lot of Hawk fans that have brought up to me over the past couple of weeks why they want him brought in here and that they love him and that they really liked him as a player. But I've yet to see anybody that can exactly push back against these two specific points as far as detriments to his game, which wouldn't be but on bright display if you brought him back here, and probably would make him even look as worse a player than what you have from Drake Thomas there at the position right now. Because at least with Drake, you do have the coverage stuff. He might be equivalent as far as getting off blocks go in the run game, but he's going to at least cover like a demon and have some acumen in that part. But Jordan just, he's lost in zone coverage. He is absolutely lost back there. He can run like the wind, man, but the instincts and coverage are just not there. And he can be attacked by offensive coordinators, specifically with flood zone concepts rolling right through his zone. I saw it for years here. But again, I might be alone on this one where a lot of fans do want to see that, Jonas. I've heard it mentioned quite a bit on this. So I think Hendrickson, though, is going to be a hard get. I think the Bengals are probably hanging on to him there. Nitro, one of the underrated things about Cup is that I'm sure he's taught JSN a bunch of and helped with his leap. Absolutely, you'd have to think so, especially being that Cup's such a smart, heady guy. Nick B could be, sorry. Okay, Signed Arnold was awesome. He's great in Kubiak's system. Yes, he is. Braden Lackey, thank you for becoming a HawksNest Pro Bowler, my man. Welcome aboard. Please do keep an eye on your community posts. That's where I put the membership benefits, is the community post. So Monday morning PFF scores. I know this week was a little bit thrown off, but next week we'll get back around to Thursday Night Football and get a call-in show here for members of the channel. Keep expanding that stuff for you folks. But thank you for that, Braden. Braden, appreciate you. Roger Morales, thank you for the $10 donation, Roger. Very kind of you, and right on time there, Roger. Ram fan in the house, dropping a dono, showing support to the channel, and right to my point, man. What's up, Brandon? I think you got to make the trip out to SoFi again for the Cup Bowl. Laughing out loud. Got to get a few more shots in again, man. Safe to say, you were the life of the party. Oh, well, thank you, man. I hope I didn't embarrass myself too much out there. You drink a margarita on an empty stomach, and then you do shots on top of it. And it can lead to a little bit of trouble. But luckily, I was around some friendly Ram fans that kept me on my feet and kept me laughing and whatnot. I had a great time out there, Roger. Appreciate you. And I'd love to make my way up there. It's hard on these game days for me because they're just such big days for streaming and doing all that stuff with it. But I was very impressed by the stadium. It was a cool experience. Awesome tailgating on the outside. Of course, everybody was just awesome and cool. I'm out there with the Hawk jersey, walking around, ton of Ram fans, and nobody's throwing any bottles at my head or, taking any shots or anything on that. So that was pretty cool with it. But I'll get back up there again, man, for sure. We'll get back to the round table there at some point, and you never know. You never know when I might make another trip up there on that side of it. So I'd love to get back in there again on that stadium. It'd be cool to see the Hawks in there. You guys got a hell of a place, man. It's a very beautiful stadium. But thanks for the shots, bro. Appreciate you. Again, hope to make too much of embarrassing myself out there. Your boy Brandon got a little lit out in LA. Got a little. Didn't drink too much. Just you got to eat. You got to eat before you drink. If you do that empty stomach thing, you're going to Trouble Town. You're going to Trouble Town. Thank you though, Roger. Appreciate you. Alberto, I appreciate that. I believe humility goes a long way. As much as I enjoy winning against you guys, especially the Niners, the result can easily go the other way. Enjoy the win, but be respectful. I do too, Alberto. I think there's the old way of the fandoms and that everything's got to be at each other's throat. And I like to think, and I think we do pull this off at the round table, that you can have that intensity bubbling beneath and you can have that hyper competitiveness that exists beneath. But it doesn't get to the same place of energy that you might get in a stadium when you see a Niner Ram fan duking it out in San Francisco or something, right? Where it's got to go to that territory of things, and it just where it gets ultimately childish and toxic. And to me, there's not a lot of interesting things within that. Whereas there is a lot of interesting things in sort of having the great debates and the counter this with counter that. And let me bring up this point. Well, have you considered this as well? Well, I hadn't considered that as well. Maybe you kind of got me on that. And maybe your team's kind of got us on that. And I like that depth. That's part of why I want to do this channel, why I love this sport so much, is that it has so much of the depth of layers to it that you can pull apart in matchups and philosophy of team building and all of that you never have to get into that other stuff, really. There's plenty of it in this place over here. In this room over here, we can spend all of our time in here and never have to go to that other wing of the house that so many people operate within. And giving you guys, Ram fans, 49er fans, give them credit on that. They've been very cool about that with this roundtable experience, because I would not have thought it would have gone that way. Testament to smart fan bases that are, I think, interested in looking at the game in a similarly deep level. And that's not an easy thing for me to say, Alberto. It's not easy for me to compliment this aspect of things, but I got to be honest with what I'm seeing. And it seems like in talking to Jake and Jesse that they've had similar stuff from Seattle fans coming to their chat too, which is good to hear that our people are kind of operating the same way over on their end. And it's weird. It's dogs and cats a little bit living together, Alberto, you know? Dogs and cats living together, hell on earth, or heaven. Heaven on earth, one of the two, man. But much respect, and especially with your organization, smartly run organization. I don't care whether it's in our division or not, or it's in the AFC, or you respect it. You want to look what they're doing. You want to see what maybe your team can be looking at and what they're doing, and pull from that to get our own process better and right. BK, do you think JSN is as good as a route runner as Baldwin? I think JSN will be better eventually. Yeah, I would probably say that JSN's probably a better route runner than Baldwin, as much because he's got a speed element that Baldwin didn't quite have. I think he's got a little bit of an extra gear versus Baldwin. Baldwin had a slightly better release package, but JSN's got good releases, but that was Baldwin's forefront of his game. At the best of his game, I think, with Baldwin, beyond his competitiveness, because I don't think you're going to find another receiver more competitive than a Baldwin, but his release package to get off the press coverage at the line of scrimmage. JSN's got some of that. I think Baldwin had it down to a mastery, especially with some of his stutter step, where he could dump a guy on his butt off the line of scrimmage with his release. But JSN is, I think, as he getting through the field, his ability to flip his hips, change direction, sell a route one way, come back another way. I think he does get past Baldwin there. I think he's probably got, at the very least, equivalent hands, if not slightly better. And then, Baldwin might have had a little bit more jumping ability. But I think JSN's the better receiver. I don't think Doug was ever going to put up a 2,000-yard type pace season through halfway into the year. HHG, thank you for the $5 donation, HHG. Got to say, I didn't want Sam and thought, why? But so far, I'm impressed and starting to come around on him. If he's been more than capable, we found our quarterback. Yeah, he's definitely been more than capable, and you weren't alone on that, HHG. There was a lot of people that didn't quite understand this process and plan. And luck, not just fans on this HHG, but of course, a lot of content creators in the Hawk fandom space were telling you a little bit of doom and gloom when you got to move on from DK and Gino. But the team smartly drew this one up in their view of this. It's one place where John Schneider, the last 3 quarterbacks he's picked, have all been home runs to varying degrees. Russell was a double-decker. You almost put that thing out of the stadium with him. Gino was just you got it right over the lip of the fence, still a home run. And Sam's looking like maybe another double-decker shot here. I think John's got a good eye for quarterbacks. I think he got a good understanding for what makes a good QB, what doesn't, what you need to be looking for. Then marrying that quarterback to the perfect scheme here in Kubiak. That's the other part of this. But your reticence was shared by a lot of Hawk fans out there. And Sam, had the 1 year with Minnesota, but he's got a lot of other bad tape out there on that. And I understood where people were coming from. I was a lot more positive with Sam coming here, but I could understand the people like yourself that were reticent with it in their outlook of it. This was one that was going to take a little bit more of an advanced kind of imagination to see how this plan would play out. And again, not just local fans, but pundits and the way that they saw this team, Vegas having us at 7.5 wins for the year, right? It's all across the board, and people like not quite seeing that plan as clearly. And that's part of what makes John so smart in doing it. It's one thing when you do a smart move that everybody can see as smart. It's another thing when you do a smart move that everybody poo-poos and rakes you over the coals for, that you come out looking very smart for in retrospect. J. Merrill Fair says, I eagerly await Mr. Oots' return. I bet the run game does too. Yes, sir. Patrick says, what's your comparison to Sam Darnold at this point of his career? That's a good question. The tough part is that we just don't have a long history of recent quarterbacks making this kind of ascension at this time in their career and what they're doing. I laughed at this sort of comparison before when they talked about the talent of like a Steve Young with the Niners. It's kind of like Steve Young without the necessarily as much of the leg talent. He's a little bit taller than Steve, but they both operate with a general timeliness to their drops in the West Coast offense that to me stands out pretty major way. Trying to think if there's someone else that might be in alignment here. I feel like there's maybe a better answer. I can't even go to like a Kurt Warner necessarily. So I think Sam's got more mobility. I think Warner had the quicker release. I think Sam's got the bigger arm. So kind of going, like a Kurt Warner back with the Cardinals. It's kind of a fit, but then not really. I don't know if there's really a very good comparison. I don't. I'd probably have to give it some thought and see if there's one that really does stand out to me. On that side of it, it's a good question. I'm kind of stumped by like who I can think of that would really jump out that reminds me. I know a lot of these first round picks that have this kind of bounce back sort of thing to what they do. I mean, it's not as talented. It's got some similarities to the Stafford thing too, It's not the same kind of pathway, but some similar kind of stuff there as well. It's really not a great comp there. Yeah, HHG, I definitely had a little bit more, a little too much fun. I'd rather have a little bit too much fun than not enough. Bond says, would the Bengals start selling in 2 weeks if they're 3-6? It's possible. I would think unlikely. I'm basing that upon two things. Number one, the Bengals' history is not one that tends to see them go into sell mode. I think that that's probably a pretty big deal, and that they tend to be pretty extreme on the end of the scale of even when it seems like they should be in sell mode and taking that line that they still show a kind of a refusal to do that. The other reason why, while it's a good question to ask, if it were to happen, I think it would be validly Bond if that was to be a situation that played out that way. The thing that you see here is that there's no chance that this is happening. I don't think. They got the Jets up this week. They got the Jets at home, and then they play the Bears. So you're really in a position where they should at the very least come out of that 1-1. And then if you're at 1-1, going back over to the standings in the AFC, if they go 1-1 and now they're at 4-5, well, you're still in the thick of the playoff hunt, and you got Burrow coming back in a couple weeks. So I just think that what are you going to do, Cattle Z-Bot dancing drunk was hilarious. Yeah, me and Z-Bot were both turned up in that one. Robert Charles, at the risk of being unpopular, am I the only one concerned about all the hype around JSN? He seems to be getting out of hand with some dumb, costly penalties. I think you need some humility. I don't like the penalties, Robert. I don't. I will say that some of this is a bit of the what you get with wide receivers that is always a frustrating, but just a bit of the part of their game. That diva aspect comes out somehow or another, it seems, at every kind of turn. And, if he's going to be on pace for a 2,000 yard season, but gets one penalty a game or gets one every 3 games, he does some stupid penalty, I'll do the trade-off for that for 2,000 yards. I think when a DK is kind of doing that at even like 3 times the amount of the margins, where DK may get a couple penalties sometimes a game, and then you're only ending out at like 1,000 yards a season, it's probably a little tougher to the price of business on that one. It's not a great thing, Robert. I'm sure Mike's talking to him on it, but it's not gotten out of control, I would say, yet on that. Alberto, I know Stafford's a nightmare for you guys, but honestly, in a perfect world where he stays healthy, how long can you see him still playing in the NFL? I could see him playing to 40 and that's it. It's kind of hard to say because of the back standpoint of it, Alberto. And, talking to Jake, and he seems to have some insider info on this when he speaks about this, it's really a pain tolerance thing as much as anything else. And boy, back pain is one where hurting incessantly, hurting all the time. You're dealing with it. You're shaking it off. Even if you're a really tough guy, especially when you got so much money in the bank and you're sold and you've got the world championship, I think he certainly, if the back can maintain and not get worse, I think he can kind of in a lot of ways somewhat ride his ticket on this one, Alberto, as far as could play another 2 years, potentially even. You're seeing no dip in his ability to throw the football. But that's the other part I'd say with this, Alberto, is when it comes to this age point, it's not the throwing that goes. It's a lot like the fighters. Think George Foreman, in his 50s, the punching power is still there. It's not that. And sometimes you can even have some moderate mobility. Like Favre still had some moderate mobility as he aged to kind of move around a little bit. But what it is that it becomes your inability to recover. And you get an injury and the injury lasts and you just can't get over it, and you get another injury, and now you're getting kind of depressed down as a player. You have the talent still, you have the arm strength still, but you can't push off your legs like you normally can. I know with, for instance, Favre, that was a big thing where he just got his legs kind of robbed out from under him a little bit at the end and just couldn't really plant like he once could. So it's really hard to say there. But the thing with Stafford is he's playing at such a high level right now. It is to go where you don't really look at it like, well, you're seeing the signs here. You're seeing the signs. It just comes down to, like we saw with Brady. Because remember with Brady, Alberto, it seemed like, he could still keep going if he wanted to. That final year, the Buccaneers had a lot of weird injuries, the offensive line especially. But I think that Brady at the end just kind of knew my body's not able to bounce back anymore. That thing, there's the old joke comedian used to say about it where it's like, you're a young man and you hurt your arm and you just go, swap pop. I'm just going to snap that pain right out of that elbow. Just whoop pop. All right, I'm back. I'm ready to go. Twist your ankle, walk on a little bit, flex it, twist it in a circle, go like this with you're good to go. I get out of bed after sleeping a night now in my 40s and something hurts. And then it hurts all day long. And then that's just kind of the way that stuff sort of can work now. So I think that's the thing that more monitor and track, Alberto, is can he avoid getting rolled up on, having this leg injury on this thing, and then something extra on that. I think that's the thing that'll end up kind of pushing him out the door as much as anything, if not the back. But it's not going to be a lack of ability or a lack of ability to sling the rock. And, he's mastered the position to where you can't really throw a lot at him defensively, exotically, or he's going to dice you up. So another part of this could be too, Alberto, if you win the world championship this year, Super Bowl, is that, probably walks out on that too. Jay says JSN needs an extension so he can dunk every touchdown. Jay Melfer, imagine being CJ Stroud, used to throwing to heroes, now throwing to zeros. He's going through it, man. It's not his fault either. He's going through it. Nico's good though, like BK says, but yeah, they're getting the rest of the receiving core on point. The offensive line is just, ugh. Drew Bledsoe's a good comp, Jay Melfair. I'd say Sam's got more elusiveness than Bledsoe had. And Bledsoe had a little bit of that. Again, a little bit more of that efficient. But I like the comp for where they were kind of in the career, and Bledsoe had to go to Buffalo after, still was a good quarterback for them. Buffalo. BK says, Darnold went from seeing ghosts to possible future goats. Ooh, I like that. I might steal that in the future, BK. Might have to steal that from ghost to ghosts, from goats to goat, from ghosts to goats. And there's my title. I'm stealing that, BK. Sorry, man. I'm not kicking you any money for it. I'm just straight flat stealing it. Nick, Stroud had all day in the pocket at OSU. One of the main reasons I was so high on May is because he learned how to be successful despite having an atrocious offensive line. Yeah, I think that's very fair with Stroud. I think that last game against Georgia really showed you he has an ability to deal with pressure. And this last week's game, I think, is a carryover of some of what you saw against that game in Georgia, where he wasn't under pressure a lot, but you also didn't necessarily see him flatlined when he was under pressure. And I thought that he handled the pressure well against us in this past game, considering at the high rate it was at. Any QB you put in that environment is going to, probably fail for the most part when it's hyper amount of pressures like he was dealing with. But I still think Stroud is a very good quarterback, and that's definitely an interesting situation to monitor out there with the Houston Texans and how that thing's going to roll with them, because that line's got a long way to go. Melfer, how will Riley Mills coming in affect availability for anyone in the D-line at trade time? Can we get a guard for a defensive line guy who matters? I mean, you'd be moving like a Jaron Reed, and I don't think with the leader he is in the locker room, I don't think you're looking to do that. I think Riley Mills is a little bit of an odd man out for this current year's team. There's just not really a place. I think they made the pick knowing that they're going to basically have him stashed away for the season. So I don't see Riley coming off the IR. I don't see him being made active if he does come off the IR, unless we have an injury and to Byron Murphy or Jaron Reed or Leonard Williams. And if that happens, then you'd probably see him out there. But I think that they made that pick knowing that this was going to be the plan the whole time. 3 hour, the celebration penalty isn't a big deal. IMO, all it did was make the PAT slightly longer. Myers should hit those all day. Now, if it's the DKs, flags used to be, then yeah, I agree it's a problem. I just don't see JSN turning into a like DK mentality-wise either. I don't either, 3 hours for the record. I think it's just the back-to-back week things that he was referencing. So it's also the Jacksonville game last week where he spins the ball down at the guy's foot, and that destroys a drive where you're about to put the ball down and you can put that game away. And it has a tangible effect on the game, him choosing to make himself bigger than the team in that moment. But I agree with you. I don't think that this is an epidemic issue with JSN. It's just something that has popped up the past 2 weeks that would be good if he doesn't probably keep it going into the future. Jay Melfer, is Favre with better accuracy a good comp? Yeah, I like that. I think that there's a similar combination of arm strength to mobility with Dar. I think Darnold's a little underrated with some of the mobility stuff he does. I don't think he's full on a scrambler, but I think he's far from what you would look at as a statuesque kind of quarterback in the pocket. And both have plus end arm strength. Yeah, I like that. That's pretty good. Favre probably had a little bit more, like if Darnold throws a 95 mile an hour fastball, Favre's like a 101 guy. He had that real heater. Patrick, I will say that for this year that I'm less nervous when we play teams now. I feel like we always have a fighting chance. I think we're well run. I think that's why you feel that way, Patrick, that you have a team that's prepared, that's taking advantage of all the schematic opportunities that exist in a playbook, that has really good talent, that's well coached, that doesn't create these self mistakes and hurt itself. It can stand toe to toe with anybody, Nick says JSN doing a celebration after he scores is nothing like DK ruining long runs or dropping wide open touchdowns. I'll take the extra 15 yards all day. Yeah. It's not a big problem for me either on it. Not at all. Lead Lance Dan Vienn saying, if we don't activate Riley Mills, we can retain him 4 years of club control. Is this true? I've never heard of that before. Indeed, Lethal Lance, if you have a player that loses all a year to that injury and the rookie contract, you get the one club control year back on them. Dan's correct on this. So another factor at play with Riley in that you get the extra club control. You don't really need to use him. You can have the extra year of club control on it if you wait on this one. Not to mention letting him fully get back to full health. I mean, the guy had that injury at the very end of the season last year. And remembering partly why he got that injury is because he's a guy that started out in college at like 260, gets himself all the way up to 300 pounds at the end. And he's trying to operate, working off the edge and dipping at 295 pounds. Body's like, you just put this 30 pounds on me and now you're dipping around a corner, out go the ACL. So probably needs to get the body weight used to the body weight. Needs to, that big body getting used to, okay, carrying 300 pounds and doing it comfortably. And that's also where, to me, giving him a little bit extra time ain't the worst thing, everything. Yeah, DK is it's nothing like the JSN thing at all. For sure. BK, Favre was a YOLO gunslinger. He was. I will say, I think there's a little bit of the gunslinger, not gunslinger part necessarily to Darnold, but a little bit of the willing to cut it out, cut it loose, willing to throw into tight confines, willing to trust the guy out of the break and let it rip and trust he can fit it in there timely and quick. And it's not full on the Favre, a YOLO gunslinger is right, BK, with Favre, and that's not Sam. And Favre's the ultimate YOLO gunslinger that's ever come across in the sport. But there's some stuff there to him. Nick says, Gino's playing like Favre. He's blind in one eye. A little bit like that. Love is like Favre, zero regard for turning the ball over. Boy, Love is not developing as far as getting into multiple reads either. That guy is still a one read pony. Lethal says, well, we'll keep Riley on the IR then. Yeah. Why blow the club control? It's like baseball, where you don't call up a certain guy because if you call him up at a certain time, then he's arbitration eligible. You're getting him to free agency that much quicker. It's a little bit sucks for the player, but it's better for the team, and you make that kind of move. And with Riley, you activate him right now. He's the 4-3 tech on the roster at that point. He's seeing no snaps. So, it's kind of, what's the point there? Just roll with what you got, make it go, call it a day on that one, all that good stuff. And you should be fine there. All right, well, let's start to put a little bit of button on this thing. We're 3 hours and 20 minutes on into this sucker. So I'm going to go ahead and start to kind of put a little bit of an end game here on this. But I want to thank a couple of our sponsors on the way out here. And if we got a last couple questions, go ahead and get those suckers on in. I want to first just give a big shout out here to Sleeper. Sleeper is the app that's been sponsoring us here throughout the course of this year, so kindly enough to do so. I got my picks up here over my right shoulder for you, and when you use my code NEST on the Sleeper app, they will match up to $100 of your first deposit. So $100 from me to you through the app. That's what we call a win-win-win. Support the channel, support yourself, a little bit of money for you. Everybody's happy. Hey, and there's another $20. Just create the entry. Just create a login, and they will throw $20 into your account. Yes, I know in Washington State, these sports apps have not been fully there for you to utilize, and it has sucked for you. And you've watched everybody else in the country get to have some fun, and you didn't get to have any fun. Well, now you get to have some fun, getting your daily fantasy, basketball, football, baseball, pair the picks together, go over, go under, like you see I'm doing here over on the right side. Get some money in your pocket from me to you as well in that. But thank you to Sleeper for matching on deposit up to 100% using my code NEST, N-E-S-T, NEST on the app. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see their site for details. Also going to be just running our tick pick ad as well here on this side of it for seats. So if you guys got any last questions, we'll get those on in here. But other than that, we'll kind of wrap it up. If you guys can for me, hit that like button. Helps out the channel, helps me grow, helps me show, gets me up on all the people's algorithm and all that good stuff. I know I ask it all the time, but I wouldn't ask it if it didn't have a big impact. And then it does help me show up. I want to thank all the new subscribers onto the channel here today as well, as we are really motoring along, man. We're already halfway through 20, almost to 25 here. So we're rolling, feeling good, loving it. Jay Melfair, Mills is a great answer to the older D line. He's preloaded second round talent. That's right. It's a guy that the team saw as a top 50 guy that you got in the late fourth round, mid to late fourth round. That's the value of the deal there. And you got him because of the late injury. The injury happened in the bowl game for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. That's when he sustained this injury. So that's how late the hour was that he had it. Why you want to give him that year, why you want to preserve that extra year before he gets to free agency. And where you look at into next year, okay, Jay Reed's at a point now where the contract starts to cost a little bit more. Maybe you're starting to kind of look a little bit there to going, okay, we're good. And you start to maybe be open to moving that there, and then you've got his replacement right there in house to slide on in. And even then, he doesn't have to start instantaneously, but he gets to just work his way through the rotations. You've got a real good path set up for Mills to be able to get him back from this injury at a time in a manner where he doesn't have to come back too fast, but also to set him up for some success when he does get there. And he is able to really, let it roll. Jay Melfair says, remember the new hype button that affects YouTube a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah. We got the hype button. I hadn't seen the hype button. I was not aware of this hype button thing. Well, if you see a hype button, folks, hit the hype button too. Do all that stuff. Oh, McMahon was blind in one eye and did better. Oh, you guys crack me up. Yeah, you do. All right. Well, we might be back on Sunday. We might just pair this on into next week. I got to see what we got going on here for this bye week here. We might do some Red Zone watching on Sunday and BSing with you guys. We'll just see where everybody's at as far as headwise. Again, do please hit that like button on out the door. I really do appreciate it. And then just one more thank you here to the other sponsor of our show here is TickPick. TickPick, you need seats. You want to go see a Seahawks game this upcoming year. You want to go see the Seahawks. Maybe you're in town with them traveling on the road and you're wondering, which one should I utilize? Which one's the best one to go with? Which one's the one that's going to give me the right tickets at the right price? Well, I'm going to roll you here with a little bit of TickPick, and then we'll be back to send you guys off out the door. But a big thank you to them, as they're also sponsoring the show this year, and they're going to get you the right ticket for the right price. So you balance off both having good seating, first the pricing, you get a bit of both. Let's roll a little bit of TickPick love here. Maybe in a second. I don't know about you guys, but one of my biggest pet peeves is hidden fees when it comes to buying sports tickets. A little bit extra here, a little bit extra there. Oh, sorry, sir, just one more surcharge. Why can't the price I pay be the price I saw listed? If only there was an app where these fees didn't exist. Which is why I want to give the sponsor of today's show, TickPick, a huge shout out. With over 20 million downloads, TickPick has you covered. NBA, NFL, concerts, festivals, you name it, they got it. TickPick provides the lowest prices, guaranteed. Oh, and no fees. What you see is what you pay. The NFL's in full swing, the NBA's just around the corner, and Major League Baseball playoffs are in the thick of it. Now is the time to lock in the best app in the game at finding you the right ticket at the best price. I love using TickPick. Last year, I was supposed to go to the opening game of the football season with my buddy who was also bringing those tickets, but he bailed on me at the last second and I was left to scrambling. I thought I was going to be up the creek without a paddle, but I fired up the TickPick app, was able to find a really nice seat by utilizing their high seat rating, which just looks at the combination of price and seat quality to get you that best bang for the buck. And I was able to go to the game and experience an incredible game at that. TickPick has your back. Each ticket bought is backed by the buyer trust guarantee so that you can trust your seat is legit. And of course, I've got a code for you guys. When you use code HMA, get $20 off your first set of tickets with TickPick on a purchase of up to $100. That's $20 off any tickets when you use promo code HMA. Make sure you click the link in the description section to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, TickPick. Big shout out to TickPicks. Lethal Lance, Mills is a poor man. JJ Watt to me, body-wise and playstyle-wise. There's a bit of that to his game. It's hard to get quite of a read on him playstyle-wise because he's a guy that was an edge who then sort of made that transition into defensive tackle at Notre Dame. So you do feel some of the roughness of him at defensive tackle, but he's got that body size of a JJ Watt, similar kind of dimensions with the length and just the burliness of how he's built. He may be able to get where Watt is on that down the line. The one thing that he has that doesn't have that Watt has, of course, their Lethal Lance is just that Watt was so advanced in that technique and where he had gotten to as far as his assembly of pass rush moves. And Mills on the Notre Dame tape is just kind of a bowling ball. You know, they roll the bowling ball up at the front with Mills. He's not even the one tech, where he's a nose tackle, but he's the bowling ball there just to run in and pinball around through the middle of the offensive line and hopefully just create pure chaos in doing so. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't artful. It was effective. But that's the part where there's a little bit of a difference between them, but also an understandable part, Lethal Lance, because of the fact that he is new to the position inside and that it's going to take him a while on that technique. Think of it. Bobby Wagner's working overtime, says Patrick. Yeah, Bobby's still holding it down, still a highly graded player by PFF, and hopefully still elevating himself all time as far as his rankings. I don't know if he's going to get there, and I don't know if, probably a great argument on our part if he should is when it comes down to Ray Lewis being the all-time inside linebacker at the sport versus where Bobby is and what he's going to put up, statistically speaking, and from, all of the accolades he's going to bring into play with how he's done, boy, I'll tell you what, he is just a career second to none, maybe outside of Ray at that inside linebacker position in NFL history. All right, well, we'll wrap it up on that note. Thank you guys for riding with me today. Appreciate the discussion as ever, as we just always got me thinking, always got me laughing, and always got me more well-educated coming off this than where we started. We've got the Seattle Seahawks going through a bye here this week. The trade deadline on point, you 5-2. Things really moving together nicely. Feels like things are coming together. You're about to get more healthy on the defensive side of the ball than you have been all year. You'll have everybody in full health on the defensive side of the ball. You'll have everybody in full health on the defensive side of the ball. All of them, your prospective starters going into this year. Now you, halfway into the year, will have everybody across the board ready to go when we get out of this bye week to play the Commanders. That's a good feeling to have for a team in addition to this, that it is coming together, that you can see the improvements. You can see that this is starting to take presence. We're starting to feel how this can play out in the right way for our team. So get hyped, Hawk fans. I know that we still don't know quite where this final season point's going to head, but do get hyped about where we are in the direction towards right now, because things are looking right, things are looking good, and you got a lot of flexibility over this next week and a half from John Schneider's perspective to, if a deal does present itself that can help this team out, he is not restricted in the least. He's got the draft capital, he's got the cap space. All he needs is the motivation to go after it and go make that move if there's one that presents itself. And I'm going to be watching with a close eye, and if there is a move made, I will go live. But it'll be fun to watch how John plays this one, as he's in a very interesting position. Could just stand pat, could just hold the line, could just say, hey, let's let this continue to develop. I like this team and where it's going, but also could say, well, let's supercharge this engine just a little bit. Like where you dump a little bit of the fuel additive into your fuel tank to give it a little bit more of that supercharge, a little bit like that. We'll see. Howard, do I see the Seahawks going after defensive tackle for depth at the defensive line? I don't, Howard. I don't think that there's going to be really a one tech out there to go get. You're going to be looking only nose tackle because you have a pretty good stack there as far as 3 tech goes. You have no injuries there at the position. There's other positions, I think, Howard, that are just more necessitated to be looking to address. So I don't quite see that. Lethal says Bobby was a great overall player, especially in the pass game. Yeah, he was, man. I don't think he'll ever be considered the GOAT. I don't. I think Ray's going to have a handle on that. And Ray's got some pretty sparkling statistics number-wise from interceptions and all that other stuff that Bobby can't quite match to. But as the number 2, as who's above him, has he overtaken Junior Seau? I think that there's a strong argument to be made on that. He's definitely top 4 all time. But to me, it's a matter of, is he top 4 or is he top 2? I suppose that depends on the person you ask, I would estimate. Go Hawks, Patrick Hine. Fan since 76. Let's go. See, there's folks that have been on board since the start. That's it. They've been riding or dying since then. It's the way this fan base is. Ain't no bandwagon here. I can attest to that. Absolutely can attest to that. Thank you guys for watching today. I really do appreciate you. Nick says there's like 5 to 7 defensive tackles at the top who I could see fitting nicely in what we have. The big boy from Ohio State would be phenomenal. Getting a nose tackle in there would help in the future, that's for sure, especially for a Byron Murphy who eventually will need to be freed from nose tackle hell. He's getting it done right now there from that spot, but eventually I say, Erickson, Bobby the Boss, Wagner is right. Right? Okay, I hear a lot of people pulling DT from the Costco boxes. Nice. Well, we will be back here soon, maybe Sunday, but if not Sunday, early into next week, I will be returning with you guys. Thank you to everybody that donated in the channel today. Really appreciate all of you guys for that. Thanks for hitting that like button, subbing on up as well to the new subscribers. We will be back very soon. But until next time, I shouldn't have to hype you up on this team. You're 5-2. I shouldn't have to hype you up on your team. The schedule is sitting very favorably to us in the future. I shouldn't hype you on this team. You're sitting with almost over $25 million in your back pocket. You could go make a trade deadline move to even put this more further forward. But I'm going to do so anyway. Get ready for yourself. Hell of a run to the end of this season as this team is ready to go make some noise. It's coming together. Toughest division in football. That's the great equalizer, but maybe we're able to overcome the great equalizer this upcoming season. It's just going to be fun to watch. No doubt about that. So ride with me, rock with me through the rest of this year, and dream big, my Seattle Seahawks fans. This team might just reward it. I'm Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Beyond all that, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.